Sport Reservation. Brought to you by KBFT, 89.9 FM, and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. On this episode of The Unexplained, Jane Villebrun tells KBFT's Chaz Wagner about a time she was driving near Four Corners trying to get home. It was late. She was sleepy and driving fast. When she turned the corner, hauling through the dark woods with sleepy passengers in tow, she saw something that made her stop.
And I woke up because there was a person standing in the middle of the road, and he had a real pretty blue shirt. And when I saw him, I looked down and I was going 90 miles an hour, and I was coming up to them corners, and I said, oh, geez, I thought, 90? Oh, I didn't want to get home that bad. But, then, I was so tired. Well, that was it then, and it was later that I was talking to Uncle Bill and his wife Twyla at the time. I was telling him about that I saw that man standing in the road. And that man happened to have the same color shirt as they call him Swish. When he burnt up in that house, that was the color shirt that he was wearing. And I'm thinking that, he showed up there to make me slow down. And I did slow down then. Grandpa, my hair was standing up in the back of my head like that. And I thought I gotta wake up, so I stopped and I pulled over and I stood outside for a little while. That was enough to make me, get me home without falling asleep. So that was one of the ghost stories that I had. I got scared at that time, because I thought, who was that man standing in the road? What happened to him? When I got up to where he was standing, he was no longer there. But yeah, it was then that Bill and Twyla told me that was the same color shirt as Swish was wearing when they burnt up in that house.
That's not the only unexplained experience Jane has had. She says she has someone watching over her.
Before Earl moved away, him and his family were staying with me. And I woke up one night, and I woke up to the smell of cigarette smoke. We don't have no cigarette, no drinking, nothing in my house. But there was this strong cigarette smoke. And Buster used to smoke a big, long, brown cigarette, which was called Moore. He's the father of my children. And everybody knew him as Buster. I got up, went throughout the whole house. There was no smoke in the hallway, in the kitchen. But I went to my bedroom, and there it was just strong. It gets strong that you kind of get headachy like. Especially if you don't smoke, you smell cigarette, it's not a good smell. That happened 2 or 3 times. I was cleaning the top of the stove, and I was home alone, in the house alone. I know that because nobody was around before that. I was washing that top of the stove like this, and I could feel the pressure a hand moving down, halfway down my arm, and then I thought, well, did one of them boys come in and I didn't hear? So I went through the house again. There was no one there. And there was another experience that I had there with, the actual feeling of that, the pressure of that on my shoulder down to mid-arm.
It's unexplained.
The Unexplained is brought to you by KBFT 89.9 FM and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
It's unexplained.
You're listening to The Unexplained, a series on the strange occurrences that have been witnessed or have happened on the Bois Forte Reservation. Brought to you by KBFT 89.9 FM and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
My name is Michael Connor from Bois Forte. When I was 12, I heard actual footsteps coming up the stairway in my mom's house. I realized that when I got to the door, there was nobody there, and the lights were off downstairs. And after that, there was about 4 or 5 years, my little brother, Marty, I come around a corner and there he was yelling down the stairs, who's down there? And I asked him who he was talking to. And he said he heard footsteps coming up the stairways, just like I heard before. But then again, though, nobody was down there. I know there's been a few incidents where my niece had seen somebody at the end of the hallway when she was very young. I think she was like 5 or 6 years old. She says there's a man down there, so. And that's not the first time, though. Me and my brother Vern also heard somebody coming down the hallway. I thought it was my dad, but my dad was in his room sleeping. Footsteps, and the doors were locked and everything, so there was no way that anybody else could be in there. I do believe, I believe that we live in a spiritual world. My son had me come over to his house in Palmquist. He has a half-brother that was, I think he was 2.5, and he was seeing something that we couldn't see. He was looking past us like it was moving around in the room. And then he'd look at us like, you guys don't see that. But yeah, we live in a spiritual world. I believe in things like that. So on the northeast side, I was appraising timber sale. And it just felt like somebody was looking at me on a ridgetop. That funny feeling that you get on the back, the hairs on your neck stand up and everything. Made me stop in a field. And then I went to the tree line, and then I just walked on the tree line and headed back to the truck. It was in the evening time. It was getting dark. And then I shot a deer on West Boundary. And I knew I had 3 extra shells. I knew I hit it. And I could see drops of blood. So I knew where it was, where I left off. And so I went back there, and then I could see that blood trail. And I started walking up on him. And the deer stood up. I was behind the deer probably about maybe 60 feet. I had a scope on the gun, so I raised that gun and I zeroed in on that deer. He was looking at me. But we both heard something on my right side, probably about 200, 300 feet away. The deer was looking in that direction. I was looking in that direction. And I knew whatever it was, there was more than 2. And it seemed like whatever they were kind of communicating. It scared the heck out of me, so I shot the deer hoping that sound would echo, and it just went silent. And then I gutted the deer and I dragged it back to the truck as fast as I could. And I kept looking back just to make sure nothing else was behind us.
It's unexplained.
The Unexplained is brought to you by KBFT 89.9 FM and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
It's unexplained.
You're listening to KBFT's Virtual Music Fest, a live virtual music series brought to you by KBFT and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Today we're with Superior Siren, an eerie folk project from Duluth, Minnesota. Music is inspired by Lake Superior and siren mythology and combines alluring vocals with mesmerizing blend of strings and percussion. Superior Siren is led by singer-songwriter, guitarist Laura Sellner. Back in 2016, the band released their first full-length self-titled album and is releasing an EP in May. Yeah, welcome, Laura. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
This whole Superior Siren mystique is really cool. Can you just tell us where you got the idea and the inspiration?
Yeah, well, I am born and raised in Duluth, Minnesota. And so I've lived next to Lake Superior my whole life and have always had a connection to water. And I attribute that to being a Pisces and always going to the beach with my mom growing up and loving to swim and loving the water. And so I definitely have this feeling of being like a mermaid. And when I wanted to start creating music, I wanted to create something that was a little creepy and different and maybe made people uncomfortable, but also was alluring and poignant. And so the siren mythology really fit that theme. And I wanted to make a connection to place. And so chose Superior Siren for Lake Superior.
Yeah, that's great. And speak about alluring, like your voice is really alluring. That's what really stands out with your music. You know, you have this really unique and powerful voice.
And thank you for saying those kind things.
How have you guys been dealing with this pandemic?
Well, it definitely has been hard. It's been hard for everyone. For me personally, it definitely was stifling, and kind of all the directions that I was going in my life were halted, and it made me question, I think it made all musicians question what a career in music would look like. But I feel like we just had to find ways to maneuver through it and create new ways to make music. And thankfully, like I was saying with the music video, there's still things to do behind the scenes until it's safe to perform out in public. And we are all, me and the band members, are still very committed to the project and are taking small steps to move it forward. So it's been challenging, but I feel like we're coming around and we're booking some outdoor shows this summer. So I'm very excited to start performing again with an audience.
Yeah, there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. I think the shows are going to open up to like more outdoor shows this summer. And then who knows after that again. But anyways, how many albums have you released? You have 2 albums out and an EP coming?
Yeah, so I started Superior Siren as a solo project, and so I released a solo EP back in 2014, and that was just kind of a way to record what I was writing. I didn't really have much intention behind it. I was just kind of getting going with the whole project, but that got a good local response. And then after finalizing the band and getting all those ladies together, we started working on the full length, and I wanted to do a bigger project, do CDs and vinyl. And then I took songs from that solo EP and recreated them with the band, and we released that. And that was a great experience. Most of the projects that I do are funded through grants, mostly through the Arrowhead Regional Arts Council. So I'm very grateful for funding in Minnesota because it has allowed us to do what we want to do. And so we released that album, toured it, and learned a lot from that experience. And so I have this plan to kind of consecutively release a solo EP followed by a full length. And so I'm releasing this solo EP on May 7th, and I'm really excited about that. And then that kind of allows for us to work on the next full length. And so it's my way of like getting music out there and keeping listeners engaged and continue to create while we prepare for the next full length album.
Cool. Congratulations on on your upcoming releases, and we really look forward to that. We at KBFT have been playing your stuff on our station now for a while, so we're supporting you 100%. Be sure to watch the full interview and performance on KBFT's Facebook page and YouTube channel by simply searching for KBFT. Thank you for listening to KBFT's Virtual Music Fest, brought to you by KBFT and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
This is Native Fashion, a KBFT series about the tradition of regalia making and the people who do it.
Bonjour, I'm Michelle Reed from Lac du Flambeau, Wisconsin, and I live in Upper Michigan. Started sewing and beading when I was about 7, and then about maybe 15 years ago I started doing more like machine sewing, and from there I learned a lot about applique, about pattern making, and different outfit stuff.
Who taught you how to do regalia?
My mom taught us how to sew and bead, and then my younger sister Summer actually taught me how to make applique and dance outfits with, all on the sewing machine.
You were an instructor here for the Nett Lake regalia making classes. Can you just tell us what projects you helped with?
Tonight we actually did a basic applique class, and everybody made their own medallions. In the last couple of days we also did pattern making for moccasins, leggings. We did a couple of jingle dress patterns.
How many years have you been instructing?
I've been instructing for about 35 years. When we were growing up, our mom did a lot of classes, all different types of stuff. So all 4 of us kids would go and help her teach the classes. So that's how I learned, and she still does some classes. And one of my sisters does college level outfit making classes, and then my other sister does women's groups where she teaches. So all of us do that type of work. I'd say my favorite thing about teaching is, just like what I love about outfit making, is actually seeing when the product is done. The excitement of, the people who are making the items, and then when they actually see the finished product and realize how easy it really is to do that. They actually were able to make something. Yeah, that's probably the most exciting thing for me.
How many outfits do you figure you've made?
I could not even say. Honestly, I have no idea. Definitely hundreds, but I couldn't tell you how many.
Now, your outfit is just amazing. Like, it's like beautiful, like beyond words. Can you talk a little bit about your outfit?
I have many outfits. I have about 15 outfits, but I'd say my favorite beadwork is definitely my floral contemporary beadwork. And my sister, who taught me how to sew, is the one who started that original design. She drew and painted the florals for me and gave me that set for Christmas, and then I took it from there and started beading those florals. I decided to go with like a faded fire colored background, because most beadwork is, has a simple single color background, and that's what my other sets are. But for this one, I just wanted to do something totally different, totally, contemporary, stand out, and that's what I came up with. So right now, I'm actually in the process of having a friend of mine bead a matching one for my daughter.
Yeah, you're very busy doing regalia. And what else do you do?
I also do native dance fitness, which is a way to get in shape and also learn like powwow dances, learn the stops. A lot of people say that there's no other way to build your endurance for powwow dancing besides powwow dancing, and I really believe that's true. A lot of people, they run, they lift, they do a lot of other things, but until you dance those song after song and practice that way, you won't know how good your endurance is. And of course, kids especially, they really need that. Whether they're dancers or not, they really need a fun way to get in shape and something, that they're excited about doing. Something else I do is my dance troupe, which is Woodland Sky. We include powwow stories, and also, some storytelling through the different dances that we do.
And you also do shows with Brûlé.
Oh, Yes, I also dance with Brule, which is definitely an amazing thing that I started doing a couple of years ago. Brule is very well known for their music. It's not powwow music, but it definitely has an amazing story behind it. So when I dance with them, I definitely love the way it speaks to all people, not just Native people. So it's been an opportunity to travel and I think bring our culture to many people. The biggest advice I can give to people who want to do this full time is to take a business class, learn about business, because art is an amazing way to pay the bills, but you have to know how to make the money, not just make the product. So that's definitely my advice for upcoming outfit makers.
Thanks for coming up here and sharing your knowledge with the community. Miigwech.
Miigwech. It's been an honor.
Native Fashion is produced by the Nett Lake Radio Project and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
You're listening to Anishinaabe, Ogima, Boys Fort leaders from the present to the past.
My name is Travis Morrison, and I grew up right here in Nett Lake. I am on the Reservation Tribal Council.
Why did you decide to run for tribal council?
It mainly come about by just people and residents asking me to run because they wanted another choice from some of the other usual candidates. I think I had enough experience and stuff to give it a whirl.
What do you do, and what does that mean for the people of Nett Lake?
Well, as a District 1 representative, I end up representing everyone, all of Boys Fort. The main thing is just try to get our finances in line and start building some money, which is kind of hard to do because we're so remote. We got Fortune Bay and everything, but it's still hard to get people to come there. And then on the government side, try to streamline our spending so we're not spending more than we're making. So eventually we're going to turn that around and start building money to sit on. And when it comes time to we need a new office building or a new fire department or something like that, we can have our own money to match grant funding or even hopefully enough to just use our own money to build something.
Do you think of yourself as a leader?
Yeah, it's like I suppose I do, but my background and where I come from is I don't really think of that. To me, I'm just me. I do what I do. If I don't know something, I can point somebody in the right direction. So I know a lot of people who can help in a way. So there's all kinds of questions that come to us, and now I can kind of make things happen. So don't really order people around, but we need some help with this guy on this subject, and I can point him in the right direction, and things seem to get done.
Mm-hmm. Who do you consider a leader, or who have you looked up to?
I've always looked up to my granddad, old man Dan Morrison Sr., just because when I was a little kid, he was always, I suppose, doing what I'm doing, getting stuff done. And I saw it, but I didn't realize what his job was. And as I got older and I knew what he was doing, and there was a lot of times he was hands-on helping somebody.
Your family has a history in tribal government. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I suppose it started out with my grandpa, and he's been in there. Then my uncle Dave Morrison was in there. He's still in there, and he's been in there quite a while. So he's always been around. He's shown me the ropes, introducing me to other leaders on other reservations. It's kind of cool when you get out of here and you see him at other places, and you think, holy, he knows his stuff.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think of some of the challenges Bois Fort residents face?
Things to do. There's not a whole lot to do. We do the basketball, me and Brandon, and not everyone participates in that, but there's other things other kids can do, but we just need more parent volunteers and stuff to step up, kind of like what we did. And now our little basketball program turned into something pretty unique. A lot of other communities try to do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the challenges for the youth, I think, is finding something to do and somebody to show them.
Tell me a story about growing up here in Nett Lake. What's something you remember about this place that's different from any other place you visited?
The thing that sticks out of my mind the most is how we used to walk down to the landing here by Spirit Island, and we'd go swim to the island, which our parents didn't really like us to do unless they're around, and, because some kids can't swim that good. And but we'd as a little group of boys, we'd all take the swim. It was kind of like a
initiation, or?
Yeah, kind of like a passage to to something else. You could do that. You're
cool.
You're cool. You're one of the big kids. And little did we know, on some years you could almost walk out there. You could walk so far that you'd only have to swim about 20 yards, 30 yards, then you could walk some more. But when you're swimming that, you don't know it. So we'd swim all the way out there, spend a little time there, rest, and then we'd swim back.
Any words of wisdom as we close?
I just say enjoy life. Some things you can change, some things you can't. The most part is stay positive and everything will work out.
Anishinaabe Ogima was brought to you by the Nett Lake Radio Project and by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Welcome to Bois Fort 90. Bois Fort history in 90 seconds. The Minnesota Chippewa tribe flag was created in 1934 because of the Reorganization Act. All 7 tribes in Minnesota utilized this flag. When the different tribes became established, it was necessary for each to have a flag of their own. The director of the Bois Fort Reservation at the time, Fred McDougall, set up a community contest to design a seal for the band. Unfortunately, no one participated, and McDougall went on to create it himself, recognizing the great importance to represent the tribe for years to come. In the middle of the flag lies the Bois Fort seal. There's a circle. In the circle, there are 4 directions, making 4 quadrants. In the upper left quarter, there are trees, representing what the name Bois Fort means: strong woods. The lower left quarter is brown, which represents the Mother Earth. In the upper right quadrant represents our sacred Spirit Island on Nett Lake. In the lower right quadrant is blue and has waves representing the lakes of Bois Fort. In the top half of the seal you can see 2 spirit ducks flying in the sky. That is to represent the most common wildlife found in Nett Lake. Directly in the middle there's a huge green rice stalk, and that is what Nett Lake is known for. It's wild rice. Beyond the stalk of rice is an orange sun in a raising or setting position. McDougall tried to include everything that represented the Anishinaabe people and the land of the reservation. The Bois Fort Band officially adopted the seal and the flag in a council meeting in the 1970s. The seal and the flag is still utilized today and proudly represents the Bois Fort Band of Chippewa. Bois Fort 90 is produced by KBFT Radio and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Welcome to Bois Fort 90. Bois Fort history in 90 seconds. The Lac LaCroix pony, also known as the Ojibwe pony, would roam free on the Nett Lake Indian Reservation. The pony was a multi-purpose working animal particularly most important during the winter months, where it would haul wood, trap lines, and sleighs for the Ojibwe people. In the 1900s, the ponies were plentiful on most of the First Nations reservations, including Bois Fort. During the 20th century, the horse population declined dramatically. This was due to many reasons, most notably the advancement of machinery. The last herd remaining in the United States was located in Nett Lake, Minnesota, and was killed off by missionaries in the 1940s. The last community to keep their horses was Lac La Croix First Nations in Canada. In 1977, the Canadian government called the last 4 roaming mares a nuisance, but before officials could destroy them, Bois Fort and Lac La Croix community members planned a rescue. They loaded the remaining horses on a trailer and brought them to a secluded farm in Minnesota. There, they lived in a free-roaming state, protected from slaughter. In 1990, the Lac La Croix pony was listed as an endangered species. Today, there are 150 horses located in Ontario, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Minnesota. But sadly, none of the horses remain in Bois Fort. Bois Fort 90 is produced by KBFT Radio and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
You're listening to Native Arts Fest, a series that celebrates the vibrant Native arts community in Minnesota.
Minogijik nindishna kas makwa nindudem waswagening in Dunchaba Ojibwe Anishinaabe in Dow. My name is Wayne Valier, and my native name is Good Sky. My family is the Bear, and I'm from Lake of the Torch, or Lac de Flambeau, Wisconsin.
Wayne Valeri is an artist and educator. He's been teaching at Lac de Flambeau Public Schools in Wisconsin since the year 2000. He's considered himself an artist for as long as he can remember. And he's always been looking for knowledge about Ojibwe culture.
For a long time, from my earliest childhood memories, I've always been in a quest for Anishinaabe Gikendaswin, in a quest for knowledge, starting as a small child from my grandparents and my parents and the elders my parents hung out with when I was a small child. Always talking about native culture and native values. And
he said he learned by watching his elders. He remembers being young and going to fish camps, rice camps, and hunting camps in the fall. Valeri is recognized for the cradle boards and canoes he makes by hand. In 2015 and 2016, he was honored with a Community Spirit Award from the First Peoples Fund.
Was given some time back, I was given some tobacco and asked a proper way to come over here and share cradle board making. And I do the Ojibwe style cradle board with the complex bends on the headboard, and putting it together with no screws or glue or anything like that. Putting together the old way with Wawaskeshi with rawhide, the old way.
Valeri said it took him a long time to learn how to make a cradle board. He explained, you just can't use any kind of wood. You have to understand how to bend it and the tolerance each kind of wood has. He's used cradle boards for his children, all 8 of them. He was in a cradle board too, and he says his grandparents also used cradle boards. He enjoys teaching kids how to make them and young parents too.
The reason I decided to accept the tobacco and I travel around Anishinaabe country and get asked here and there to share some of that. So, so that we don't forget, so we don't lose that Gikendaswa and that knowledge on how to make those traditional boards.
In addition to teaching, Valeri also knows the history behind cradle boards.
Well, one of the first receptacles were actually wigwas made out of birch bark. Our Ekwewag, Winnebuju was actually put into a wigwas stickanoggin, a cradle board that was made out of birch bark, and that was used for a long time. And then nobody knows how old the wooden Tikanagan is, but I think it would be safe to say it probably came to us, somewhere around the 1700s when we started to trade various cloths with the Europeans, and then we traded velvet and beads and started to do beadwork and quill work and making those beautiful wraps. So I think it probably originated around that time.
Valeri says if you want to make a cradle board, just look to some of the historical photos taken about how different tribes all over the Great Lakes area made them.
Some of the old archaic photos of cradle boards are out there in different historical societies. Look at those photos. Look at those sizes.
Cradle boards weren't just a way for parents to carry their babies. It was also a way for children to learn. It's better than a crib or a playpen.
Not in Tikanagan. When Mom would put baby in Tikanagan, that wherever she went, baby went with her. And when she was working, she would lean baby up against a tree or against something, and baby would be watching everybody doing the work, listening to the stories, listening to the laughter. So our children, they learn quickly that way in Tikanagan.
For KBFT, I'm Allison Herrera. Native Arts Fest is brought to you by the Nett Lake Radio Project and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
You are listening to KBFT, Minnesota Artist Profiles, a series featuring artists and musicians of Minnesota. Brought to you by KBFT 89.9 FM and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Darren Landgren is an artist specializing in metals who is from the Nett Lake Indian Reservation in Minnesota.
Bonjour, Waskane Benesi Indigenakas. Darren Landgren is my English name. I am from Nett Lake, Minnesota, and I currently reside here in Nett Lake, Minnesota. My interest in artwork started at a young age where I was drawing in notebooks and just creating little, I guess they were like little army scenes in a paper and pencil notebook. And then in high school, Mrs. Reed introduced me to painting and a bunch of different types of artwork. And shop class, Bruce Black, we made cabinets and little shelves and stuff like that. So that got me into the woodwork side of my art career. And then down in Lake Superior Community College, I took a model class. I thought it was our sculpture class. And I thought it was going to be like carving out of marble and stuff, but it was actually using almost any kind of medium and creating a sculpture from metal to clay or wood or anything around the house. Got me interested in building artistic sculptures. I do all different kinds of artwork, from making regalia to metal artwork and cedar feather boxes and different types of woodwork. I've made roaches, bustles. I've done a little bit of sewing and beadwork. What I really like to do is create metal artwork, metal sculptures. Right now I'm working on a metal dream catcher made out of rebar in a big, it's about 10 feet long circle that I have bent the rebar around to create a metal dream catcher. I'm also working on cedar feather boxes, or I guess you don't just have to stick feathers in there, you can put anything you want, but they're kind of a rustic looking cedar box. I'm also working on cedar feather boxes with a metal feather inlay, which I'm also going to develop into different maybe clans like Bear Clan, Fisher Clan, metal cutouts to go on the top of these cedar boxes. They're kind of rustic looking. I take a Dremel and I drag it across the cedar to kind of engrave in it so it looks old and weathered.
Who are your influences?
I'd say one of my main influencers is Dave Aho, my welding mentor. He's made many artistic sculptures, from aluminum twisted metal art sculptures to these giant shears he made for somebody out in, I believe, Hollywood. And he taught me how to weld and I take my inspiration from there, and I use my culture to develop these things for people. And my grandfather, he was a carpenter, and he did a lot of woodwork, and I look kind of towards him to building these boxes out of wood. That's where I learned how to my woodcraft skills from. If you're looking to get into becoming an artist or a musician, I'd just say go for it and practice your hardest, experiment in different things, and you'll eventually find out what you're good in, and then just keep going from there. Just try it out. If you don't know what you're good at until you try it. And then once you find something you like, I'd stick to that, and if it's not fun for you, don't do it. I'd say the hardest thing about being an artist is you gotta have really good problem solving skills, and if you don't, then you have to reach out and create relationships with different people and bounce ideas off of them to figure out how to do your art or what kind of art you're most interested in. There's tons out there. The greatest part of being an artist is seeing people and how they appreciate your art and how they think it's amazing, because honestly, when I get done with my piece of artwork, I can see all the flaws in it, and I almost don't even like it anymore when I get finished, but people think it's beautiful. So, and that's one of the hardest parts of me creating my own art. I get done with a project and I can see every flaw and detail in it, and I don't think it's good enough, but other people think that it's wonderful and eye-catching.
Where can we find you and your art?
If you're looking to purchase some of my dream catchers or feather boxes, they'll be out here probably end of May at benesiCraft.com or BenesiCraft on Facebook. That's BINESI Craft. So just check it out or add me on Facebook. You can also call me at 218-994-1788, and I can work out something with if you need a custom artwork done, metal or wood. I haven't really been in business. I've sold a couple things here and there, but I'm working on creating a product line of feather boxes and different metal dream catchers, large and small. So I'd like to try to sell on Facebook, and I'm creating a website right now.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
I enjoy listening to KBFT radio. It has lots of culture and Native American news that pertain to me and my community, and it's got a very different mix of music than the regular old hits that are playing on the radio all the time. Also like listening to the Benner Show, and Chaz's Deep End's got some good stuff on it.
Thank you for listening to Minnesota Artist Profiles, brought to you by KBFT and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
This is Native Fashion, a KBFT series about the tradition of regalia making and the people who do it. Well, first tell me your name.
Guy Cloud.
And tell me where you're from.
Squaw Lake.
Squaw Lake. Now, where is that?
We're kind of like southwest of here.
Okay.
About 2 hours.
About 2 hours from here. Okay. So now tell me a little bit about what you're going to wear here. I see it. Can you describe it for me? What does it look like? And just tell me if there's any sentimental value to it, or who made it for you.
Well, my shirt was made by my sister. I have one other one. It was kind of gifted to me back in Ball Club in about 2009. What I wear on it is my Vietnam Veterans patch. I've got two eagles on my left chest, kind of signaling over the heart. I dance with a dancing stick, eagle feathers, eagle fan. My headgear is a veteran's hat that has two eagle feathers on it also. I wear a small chest plate that has the Army insignia because of my daughter. She did two tours over in Afghanistan. She was a turret gunner. Second time around, she got promoted to sergeant, and she was in charge of her own vehicle.
Your powwow outfit, what you're going to wear, has a lot of significance because of your experience, your military experience, and your family's military experience.
Yes, it does.
Why is it? So why put that on what you're going to wear and dance in the arena? And why is that so important to you?
Well, to me, it's, what's the best way to put it? I recall growing up, I guess, mainly seeing the older style powwows. When I go out and dance, I don't dance for myself. I dance for my mom, dad, my grandparents, and fellow veterans.
And it's an honor.
Yes, it is.
Tell me the colors of your ribbon shirt and why you chose those colors.
That was what my sister chose for me. When she gifted it to me, you have to accept it. It's a gift. You can't say no. So, and especially if it's your sister.
Now tell me how you got the Eagle staff. Did you have to? Was there something special that you had to do to be able to get that?
Military veteran.
Okay. So military veterans get those.
Well, maybe not all the time. In the manner of how you get them makes a big difference.
Can I ask what was really memorable about your service? Just tell me a little bit about that. Just because it seems like your regalia has has a big tie to your military service. So, and maybe there's something there that happened to you that really that you remember really well.
Well, being in the Marine Corps, basically, I look at it with the same values that they have. I see when I dance and what I see during a powwow. It's basically honor, trust.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thanks so much for your service.
Well, thank you. You're welcome.
Native Fashion is produced by the Nett Lake Radio Project and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. You're listening to Native Writers Fest, a series that features Native literary talent from Minnesota and beyond. Native comedy is full of irony, jabs at stereotypes, and it's meant to make fun of sometimes painful subjects. Like the time famed comedian Charlie Hill took the stage at a comedy club in the 1980s, talking about sports teams using mascots in a derogatory way. Remember, this was way before the recent name controversy with the Washington team.
And then they'll make you mascots at ball games, and then you'll feel, all right? I mean, I watched the Super Bowl. I was for the Washington team, but the Redskins, I mean, the team is great. I like Riggins and all, but the Redskins, right? Where's mascots? Redskins, Braves, Bucks, the Chiefs. I'd like to see the Kansas City Caucasians. That would be kind of, white guy out there wearing a leisure suit.
The thing is, he made people laugh about a subject that today is cause for protest. Dene comedian Mark Yaffe and Red Lake Ojibwe comedian John Roberts are following in Hill's footsteps with their brand of sharp comedy that sometimes pokes fun at painful truths while making you laugh out loud. KBFT brought both Yaffe and Roberts to Nett Lake for a recent Native comedy night.
Natives in the house, we are going to party like it's 1491. Let's go, people.
Mark Yaffe hasn't had what you would call a traditional career. His first comedy gig was at a traffic school in Southern California. He then went on to take a stand-up comedy class and eventually performed.
I did first show I did in front of like 10 people, and like 2 people laughed, and I said, hey, this is fun. So yeah, I didn't let those other 8 people stop me. Took off from there, been to 43 states, 11 countries, performed on a flatbed in the middle of the desert in Iraq for Marines, got my head shaved while I was doing that, and got to do a show on Alaska Airlines for passengers on the way to the World Eskimo Indian Olympics in Fairbanks, and I've done shows in the middle of the South Pacific on a giant rock in the Sierras for a tribal gathering. So it's been I haven't had a traditional career necessarily, but I've had a lot of fun. Yeah.
Today, Yaffe makes a lot of people laugh with his brand of sharp humor that takes aim at social issues while having a good time. Yaffe grew up in Southern California. He was adopted and didn't learn about his Dene heritage until he was 25. He got a letter from his mother along with pictures that arrived at his work, the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Sent me this big envelope and pictures of my mom and my dad, and his family came from Gallup area and worked their way to Los Angeles, and then gave me kind of the whole history, and we stayed in touch till she passed away, and I have half brother, half sister. And
even though he's experienced success in his career, there still have been some challenges. One is just being known as a Native comedian.
I think the challenge for us is the people don't think you're marketable. They say, well, okay, Indians 1% of the population. There's not a huge demographic to bring crowds. So some of the tribal casinos would be a little hesitant to bring us in unless it's a tribal event or Native Heritage Month, something like that. But the mainstream casinos and mainstream clubs, they just like, one, they're worried, oh yeah, there's going to be, we're just going to come out and bash white people, and it's going to be too touchy. And two, people they just don't know if you're a draw. So,
but he said he's worked the label Native comedian to his advantage.
So I think it's all in the fact that people are respectful by and large in Native culture. I guess maybe it's just the times, and now I guess Indians are in.
Tanya Joe Hall. Are we live?
Yeah.
Oh, hello. My name is John Roberts from the Red Lake Nation. Full-blooded Ojibwe. I'm a married father of 12. Yes, 12 kids. I do know most of their names. I've been doing comedy since 2009.
John Roberts was inspired by his Uncle Joe. He said his Uncle Joe used to diffuse tense situations, like the time they were all in a tornado shelter together.
Well, comedy to me, since I was a kid, I had my Uncle Joe. He passed away in 2002, and he was the one of the family. He had the energy, always making people laugh. I remember this time we were in, it might have been a tornado, and the whole family had to go downstairs. My grandparents, my uncle, his wife, my mom, my sisters. We had to go downstairs, shelter in the basement, and it was dark. All the lights were out. The power went out, and he was just there. Not telling jokes, but he was just keeping the mood light. Making sure everybody wasn't panicking, and it was just. I was thinking, man, that's somebody you need in intense situations to, lighten the mood so people aren't scared. And keep them calm so they don't, whatever.
Roberts grew up in South Minneapolis at the Native housing development known as Little Earth of United Tribes. Today, his life revolves around his kids and being a foster parent.
Trying to make my res a little bit better by contributing the best I can. I used to be a volunteer softball coach, baseball coach for about, I think, it might have been 10, 11 years. Yeah, just pretty much keeping busy. Trying to be a positive influence on the nation,
4 years ago, Roberts teamed up with fellow comedian Robert Fairbanks, where they embarked on a trip to Hollywood for a documentary called Res Comedy.
To be in northern Minnesota and to call yourself a stand-up comedian, well, it sounds like a movie premise.
He and Fairbanks traveled to Hollywood to make people aware of Native comedy. And they made a film about it. Roberts said that surviving in comedy isn't an easy business.
But to get where I am right now, it took a lot of energy. It took a lot of getting told no. You got to be persistent in going after what you want. It's a lot of work. I've gone down to Minneapolis so many times for 3 to 5 minutes of stage time, come back home and I'm done. And a lot of people telling me that don't understand it. They say, why are you doing that? It's not even worth it. And the way I see it is, I got to get my foot in the door. People are going to notice the work I'm putting in. And it's getting to that point now where people that are in comedy, they realize that it's a lot of work to get to, where the big names are.
Still, he said, it's paid off. His movie Res Comedy is coming out on Amazon soon. For both comedians, their words of encouragement are to keep at it and never lose sight of yourself. For KBFT, I'm Allison Herrera. Native Writers Fest is a production of the Nett Lake Radio Project and is supported by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Welcome to Powwow the Dance, a program that explores the cultural and traditional powwow songs of the Boys Fort Band of Chippewa.
Linda Tibbetts-Bardo, and everybody knows me by Toodles. My Anishinaabe name is Niju Gabuikwe. My regalia is a jingle dress. This dress was given to me by one of my older sisters, but it was also given to me in a dream. There's a pretty good story behind this dress. A young lady had passed on, and her mom was told to make this dress, have a person wear it and dance in it. Every time she asked anybody to help her do it, they wouldn't help her. My older sister Elaine told her she'd help her make it, and both my sister Elaine and Fern Isham put the dress together. They are the ones who made it, and gave it to the mother, and she was to find somebody to wear it so that they would dance in it for 4 years to help her healing with the loss of her daughter. My sister Elaine stepped up and said that she would wear the dress. In the dream, I was given a blue and white dress, and I just happened to be sitting down talking with my sister about it, and she said, "Here." She said, "I can't dance for this anymore." She said, "Here's a blue and white dress that you were given in your dream." And she said, "You can have this dress, but also remember that you're dancing for this young lady and for her mother's healing when you dance." And knowing the story about the jingle dress and understanding the significance of the jingle dress out in the circle, that those of us who wear a jingle dress bring that healing into the circle. And so every time I go into the circle, that's what I do. I bring in the healing. I offer prayers for people that I know who need healing, even sometimes for my own family. And that's the significance of the regalia that I dance in and that I wear. But I was young when I started dancing here, where the senior assisted living building is right there, is where we used to have our powwows.
Okay.
And it was the old Ball Diamond. And that's where I started my dancing.
Okay.
And I danced a jingle dress then when I was young. I remember, them going in and having the powwows in there, and the older people, some of them I remember names of, some of them I don't. For myself, the way I remember it, I can remember being out and all of a sudden just hearing the ladies' dresses, the jingle dresses, and I knew that there was going to be a powwow. Mom and them would, take us up there for a short time. And the only thing that I would say that has changed is that they've gone to, we've brought in the fancy shawl dancing. I don't remember that as a young girl. There was the grass dancing. I don't remember the double bustle fancy grass dance. I remember the men's traditional. I never ever remember a competition powwow. And that was all new to me as well when I moved back. It was more a social gathering that I remember. We weren't allowed to practice, the ceremonial powwows out in the open or anything like that. We did not get the right to practice our traditional ways until 1978. Now we can do it. We can practice it, and that's great because it's bringing back a lot of strong identity for a lot of our people.
Powwow the Dance is a production of the Nett Lake Radio Project, made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Welcome to Elder Times, a program where we learn about the history of Nett Lake through the voices in our community. Today we'll be talking with Ron Boucher. This will be part 1 of 3 interviews.
My name is Ron Boucher. I was born and raised in Nett Lake, on a Nett Lake reservation. I was born at my great-grandmother's house, Rosie Strong. But back then they had a lady, Miss John, her name was, and she took us me and my mother to the Little Fork Hospital, and that's on my birth record right now, is Little Fork. But I wish my grandmother Strong's name was on there yet. I'm the first great-great-grandchild of George Strong and Rosie Strong, and also on my dad's side, I'm the first great-grandchild too of the Joe Boucher and Mary Boucher. So it's an honor to, I guess, to be one of the first great-grandchildren there. So, but anyway, I was asked to talk a little bit about when I was growing up on a reservation. I grew up down on a ball diamond where the old powwow grounds are now. There was a house up there. It used to belong to Tony Harding. And right below the hill was my little life. It was Strongville, they called it. My great uncle Herbert and my great uncle Johnny and my great uncle Louis and Herbert and my great auntie Annie. They all lived down there. And Spuddy and my great grandmother lived in that house down there. And so it was a big thing for us to go down there all the time and learn. Play with everybody down there, down around Strongville, or Squeaky and Roger Strong and Galig and Norman and Lulu and Herbie and all them boys, strong boys, Gayo, Kenny. So that's where I grew up. I grew up with those guys. Language was we spoke language. They spoke language to us a lot, to me and Reggie when we were growing up. But today, I struggle with it today because I never really, after I got into become a teenager, I never really spoke language after that. But I always remember speaking it when we were little with my grandmother and my aunts and my great uncles. We grew up around Nett Lake there. Me and my mom, my dad, and my older brother, my uncle Justin, who was like a brother to me. My mom and dad raised him ever since he was 4 years old, and then he lived out on an island with us at Burnside Lake. He lived with us all these years till he graduated high school. Off and on, once in a while he'd get mad at my mom and he'd go live with our aunt Annie down at Strongville. But we all grew up cutting wood, hauling water. I remember during the times when it was time to wash clothes, we'd have to haul a lot of water to fill up the tubs and stuff for my mother and rinse water and then it was a big chore that we had every day after school to chop wood and so we all lived up there in that little house. My mom, my dad, my older brother, and my two younger brothers, Jim and Elmer Bazug. So they were just Jim was just a tiny baby then, and so was Elmer. He was pretty tiny, small yet. But I remember, when we were growing up, we did a lot of things together, all of us guys. We hunted, we played army back in them woods. We walked all over in them woods and out to Jory's field. We had trails, we had little campsites out there. We'd stop and make tea. Those were the fun days, and we'd go always out in the canoe. We'd go explore around the lake shores and walk up on the shores and look for things, and it was pretty good back in them days. Really didn't have nothing to worry about, because it was, I don't know, it seemed like we were free, back in them days. Like nowadays you gotta answer to something, or you can't do this unless you have a piece of paper saying you can, but back in them days it seemed, like I said, free to us, and my great grandmother always taught us a lot, to me and Reggie. I grew up pretty close to Reggie Strong when I was growing up, and Lulu and Herb. Those guys were pretty close to me, and so we did a lot together. We hunted, a lot of crazy things back home, back down in Strongville, and the horses. My grandmother had horses, and I remember we used to ride them horses, and we used to take care of them horses for her, cut hay, and then always used to be fun when we'd go in the winter time. We'd go cut wood, and we used to get them horses and them sleigh on the sleigh, and then we'd go out and cut wood, and that used to be fun. And my dad would make coffee and stuff out in the woods, and Justin and all of them, Squeak and all them guys would come help, and we used to always have and we'd all ride back with a big sleigh full of wood and unload some at Grandma's, and we'd take some up to our house, and then it was cutting wood for us. Well, and anyway, it was pretty good. I always think of that. Now that I'm 59 years old, I always think back of those days, and days that they make me laugh, and then some are sad, and sometimes I miss those people that are gone now before us, that I grew up with, and I always think of them. When I get a chance, I go put food out for them, and hopefully they get it, but anyway, I'll tell a little story about my grandmother, my great-grandmother Rosie. Me and Reggie learned a good lesson from her years ago, and we used to go up to her down to when we go down being Strongville down there. My Auntie Annie Strong would call us in and tell us that Grandma would want to see us, and so we'd go up and visit. We'd go up her stairs, and then we'd walk back there and go visit with her. And back then we knew how to talk Indian and understand Indian, both I and Reggie, and that's all we did down here was Indian. It seemed like Squeaky and Glig and Clara and Karen, all of them, they spoke the language, and except when we were joking around about stuff, but we'd go. Me and Reg would go up to my great grandma's room, and she'd always give us 4 things, each of us, and she'd tie it up in a little cloth. It was a marble, a piece of a piece of maple syrup candy, and then a nickel, and then some tobacco. And she'd fold that up and tie it up, and she'd give us each one, and then she'd explain to us or what we put in there. And anyway, one was for playing, one was to buy something, one was to eat, and then one was to pray. And that's one thing I never forgot, even as young as I was. Because she used to do that to us every month, and go up to her place, and then it was a good lesson, that she taught us, and I always think of that. I always think of that today. That back then, those little 4 things, meant we had everything, and nowadays, we can't get enough. We gotta have this. Our kids gotta have that. They gotta have, our grandkids gotta have this and that, and cost $80-$90 for a pair of shoes to get them to when they play basketball. Nowadays, but back then, those material things like that didn't mean a whole lot to us. But those little 4 items in that little bag seemed like meant the world to us, and it was given to us by our great-grandmother.
You have been listening to Elder Times, brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and KBFT 89.9 FM, Bois Forte Tribal Community Radio.
This is a special segment about Native American film and media for KBFT Radio on the Bois Forte Reservation. Sit back and enjoy the listen.
Say, hello, Boys Fort.
Hello, Boys Fort. Vanessa Jenkins here. I'm from Boys Fort.
Boys Fort? Just Boys Fort?
Yeah. Born in Duluth, Minnesota.
You came to the Film Fest series.
Oh yes, the Film Fest.
How many shows did you attend?
I think 3.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good odds. We had 4 of them.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I thought it was pretty cool. I got little inspiration with that and learned how to make more like the videos or homemade films, and brought my niece with me a couple of those times. She's actually really good. She has her own like YouTube videos, so I thought maybe she could get inspired with all that.
That's cool. So out of the 3 festivals that you were at, which one was your favorite?
My favorite one was the one with the homemade movies. Some of them were scary, but not scary movies, but you know, the kind of made the little clips kind of scary, but they weren't scary. They're just, I don't know.
Yeah, with all the masks. And
all the masks and how they were just saying their words.
Wow. After seeing these movies, would you consider becoming a film or movie maker?
I do good with camera work, like more photography, but with the movie, I need to invest in a good phone or maybe a good camera, and then I could probably try to go into that. Usually when I used to do like not homemade videos, but with someone I knew who was making like a music video, and would post that on the YouTube. But I kind of get infatuated with like how home life and families could be like. Like I know, like with me, I'm more like a family oriented maybe, but I don't know. I think I kind of get a kick of how the younger generations you could learn from the more younger generation than the older generation, because I don't know, like with me chilling with, say, my niece, she's teaching me how to do more things than I used to know when I was her age. So I guess with me, I like nature too. Like I like to walk in the woods. I like taking late night trips in the middle of the night. With that, you know, there's things out in the woods that, you know, a lot of people don't want to see or, you know, be a part of. So I don't know. It's so quiet up here. It's so different up here. So when I used to live in Duluth, so when I used to walk at nighttime, and I used to not be afraid of what's out there. But up here, I'm so scared of the nighttime and what's out there. So one time I took a walk to the school out here, and the only thing I seen was a turtle. And I was like, look who I ran into. And then I took a picture of it. And then, but it would be cool if I could actually film that. And then paranormal activity. And then I run into some odd animal. And then, I don't know.
What was your favorite film of the program?
I like with, when they were talking in Ojibwe, the grandmother was telling the story to the younger girl, her grandbaby, and about their dad, and then not her dad, or maybe her grandpa, about her grandpa and what they were doing, and when they were racing, and then he falls in the water, and then the young boy was trying to find his dad, and then, you know, it was kind of interesting how she was telling her younger granddaughter in Ojibwe. My favorite movie of all time. I've been watching newer movies too lately, so catching up with the newer films and stuff. But I kind of like that, the funny, maybe Deadpool. That's kind of not like.
That's a good one.
But I kind of liked that, and usually I don't go for that. There was a movie that I went seeing with my auntie. We went. It was in Duluth, and that old North Shore Theater in Duluth. Me and her went and seen this one, and it was called Little Voice. So she was singing in the film, and I don't remember who the actress was, but I remember that movie like I seen it yesterday, kind of. I think maybe the film festival was really good. It was nice that the Trinity is doing certain events, and I know like people would see like, oh, there's food here, there's whatever here, but they don't see like what the flyer actually says. So it's like a learning experience, and you can take a lot out of it.
Thanks for tuning in to our special series about Native American film. This story was brought to you by the Nett Lake Radio Project and the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund of Minnesota. You're listening to The Unexplained, a series on the strange occurrences that have been witnessed or have happened on the Bois Forte Reservation. Brought to you by KBFT, 89.9 FM, and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Danielle Paradas is a Nett Lake resident. She works the night shift, and periodically she'll step outside to enjoy a cigarette while waiting for the hours to go by. One night, she said she saw what looked like a UFO right in front of her.
Okay, bonjour, this is Danny Paradas. I live on the Lake Vermilion Reservation. Chaz asked me to tell a ghost story. It's not exactly about ghosts, but it is about a UFO sighting. I was working late for the housing department on a Sunday. I think I had a deadline that Monday for something I had to get done. And so the government center is right next to Nett Lake, of course, and Spirit Island out there. And anyways, when I do work late, I smoke. So I went outside to go have a cigarette, and up in the sky, it looked like there was a plane coming kind of towards the government center from across the lake. There were lots of clouds, and so when I was coming through the clouds, I'm like, that's a really low-flying plane late at night. It was just weird, so I was just watching it, and then it stopped right almost as soon as it was kind of breaking through more of the clouds, and like very, very close in terms of like how close it was to the ground. Well, anyways, it was just stopped, and it was hovering, and then all of a sudden I could see more of like its structure, and it was more of a triangle shape. I know UFOs are thought to be like saucers, but this one was a triangle, and I just stared at it just like, whoa, and it started moving like, I don't even know how to describe it, like clockwise, not spinning like a saucer, but it was spinning like vertically, like up and down. And as it was spinning around in the sky, it started shooting red beams of light that went through the air pretty fast and would just kind of dissipate in kind of all directions. And I was just staring at this, and I had two boys at home down on Pineview East with a babysitter. I called the babysitter to make sure I was not going crazy, that there was something. When she answered, I said, hey, can you look towards Nett Lake? tell me what you see. Is there anything in the sky? And she goes, oh my God, what is that? And I said, I didn't know. And we both kind of just stayed on the phone together, talking about what it could have been. We're like, UFO. After the phone call, I was done with my cigarette. I put the cigarette out. I head back in to get my work done. It was still there. I come back out about an hour later. It is still in the sky. I drive home, get inside. My babysitter goes home. We stare at it, and never quite figured out what exactly it was other than a UFO. I started Googling like spinning, flying objects or whatever. But I never really found anything exactly like what I had seen. All right, that is my spooky ghost / pseudoscience Halloween story.
The Unexplained is brought to you by KBFT 89.9 FM and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. This is Native Fashion, a KBFT series about the tradition of regalia making and the people who do it.
My name is Roxanne. I grew up in Nett Lake.
Would you mind telling me about what you're gonna make? Can you tell me about what you're gonna be sewing here? What kind of dress are you gonna make?
I'm not sure. Just a dancing dress. Jingles. You can have a jingle dress on.
No, it's a fancy dress.
Fancy dress. Okay. Do you mind if I record you and if I ask you a couple questions?
We're gonna be busy here.
Before you get busy, well, tell me about the dress that you're gonna make.
Well, I'm trying to make a fancy dress for my granddaughter.
And tell me, what is it? Can you describe what a fancy dress would look like?
It's just like young girls' fancy, where they use a shawl and they just dance fancy. Mm-hmm. That's my first time making a dress, so we're just trying to figure it out here.
Yeah. Tell me about the material. Why did you pick? Can you describe what it looks like?
I didn't pick the material, and this material ain't going to be big enough for what I want to make.
Oh, okay.
So, but this is my first time making one. Otherwise, we could just make probably a simple dress. Mm-hmm. I don't know how a simple dress is, so that's why I'm up here.
And what drew you to the regalia class?
Just to learn how to make stuff, because I do dance traditional, but I just make my own stuff. But I wanted to learn how to make a fancy dress for my granddaughter, because she was jingle dressed before. So I want to learn how to make the yoke, the leggings, and everything for the dress.
So you don't think you're going to use this fabric?
It's going to be too small for what we got to put on here. Mm-hmm. Make a mini dress? No.
I don't think so.
Make a mini skirt?
I don't know if that would go. I don't know if that'd fly in the powwow arena. But you have to have it folded like this, right?
Yeah, you have to cut it out like this, and it says cut 2. This ain't going to be enough material for what I want to make.
Yeah, beautiful. I do like that fabric. It's pretty.
I know it's nice, but they picked out the material.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, so I just told them kind of what colors I wanted,
mm-hmm.
and so I just got 2 pieces, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been dancing?
Probably just a couple of years. I just wanted to dance traditional, so I just got a skirt, and I make my own ribbon shirts, and... So.
Tell me about making ribbon shirts. What is that like? Does that take a long time? And even putting the ribbons on?
No, it don't take long. It depends on what kind of ribbon shirt you make. I just buy the rings. There's little plastic rings that you can buy, and you buy the ribbon, like maybe so long, whatever, and then you just tie them on the rings and sew them onto your shirt. Mm-hmm. You could just go buy a regular shirt.
Oh, and then you just...
tack them on, yeah.
Thank you for your time. It's really pretty. Native Fashion is produced by the Nett Lake Radio Project and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Ogama in Bois Forte play an important role in the tribe's history and future. Some are spiritual leaders, while some led the tribe through turbulent times when fighting for treaty rights and basic necessities were the most important thing. While modern-day leaders also fight for these things, creating jobs, helping get development started, and building government centers, health clinics, and schools are also at the top of the list. This is all while preserving and protecting traditions and Ojibwe culture. It's what makes Bois Forte so special. And it's the reason the Heritage Center near Tower, Minnesota exists. For the last 14 years, the Heritage Center has showcased Bois Forte history, language, and customs. I took a tour on a warm late summer day with the center's executive director, Bev Miller. She told me all about an exhibit on Bois Forte chiefs, or Ogama. Some of the pictures on the wall date back to the early 20th century, and information on them dating back to the tribe's recorded history in the 1830s. So, okay, tell me, so where are we? Just set the scene here for our listeners. Where are we?
We're going to be looking at the past chiefs of our Bois Forte band.
And so did you help put this exhibit together?
I think it was Phyllis and Rose Barons. They were part of the people that put these exhibits together along with others. I think we had like 16 chiefs in our band, and they lived all over the lake. And each clan had a chief.
What clan are you?
I am Bear.
How important were the chiefs in each band?
They were the leaders. Well, I know they had like meetings. I know the Bear clan, they were like the healers, the medicine people. Well, right now I've been reading a book on Chief Bustakagan, and he lived on the Deer Creek sector of Bois Forte, him and his family and his relatives. And right now there's nobody that lives on it. He helped he helped the non-natives also. I know he was, he worked with them when the flu epidemic came. So he helped his people plus the non-natives.
John Nett Lake, looks like a modern, taken in the recent history. Do you know anything about him?
John Nett Lake, I think he got his last name. There was a mistake or something about where or what his last name was there, because he didn't speak too much English. So, and they were trying to ask him his last name. I don't know if it was true or not that he said Nett Lake. So.
For Bois Forte Tribal and Community Radio, I'm Allison Herrera.
Welcome to Cultural Crossings, a project that highlights the voices of Nett Lake youth.
Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof.
My name is Abby Rose Zapata. Having a healthy and happy family is the most important thing in the world to me. We spend a lot of time together and laugh as much as we can. We look after each other. We eat together. We play together. We're one happy, needed family.
Cultural Crossings is produced by the Nett Lake Radio Project with help from In Progress, an organization that works with youth to help them develop their artistic talents. This project is supported by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
You're listening to Native Art Festival, a series produced by KBFT Radio and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
All right. But I mean, you don't have
Leah Yellowbird is a painter who's originally from International Falls. She's not just any painter, though. Leah Yellowbird's paintings look like beadwork. She shared her unique style of painting during a class as part of KBFT's Artist Series.
I brought something really simple. I brought a page from an Ojibwe coloring book. The reason why I did that is because I wanted to show how something as simple as this children's coloring book can turn into something that's not so simple. You know, you've got an outline and the rest is creativity of whoever's choosing to do it. And if we have 20 different people here, every painting's going to be different.
How did Leah Yellowbird get the idea for her beadwork painting? She tells KBFT the story of how it all started.
I always did something. Like, I always did something with my hands. I always beaded. But I painted, when I started painting, it was, my dad had passed. And so I took my mom to Arizona for the winter. It was her first winter alone. And so we got this little trailer at this retirement park. And we got there and I brought my kayak and stuff because I love to kayak. And these retirees party like gangsters. And I could not keep up, nor did I want to. And my mom was having a blast and having so much fun. And so I was kayaking during the day. In the evening, my bead time. I didn't bring any beads. So I went to a hobby shop and I bought one of those 24 paint kits, 24 colors, tiny little tubes. And I bought a couple paintbrushes and I bought a roll of canvas. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I brought it back to the trailer. No room in this little trailer, they're very small. And I laid it out on the little kitchen dinette table that was in the trailer. And I told my mother, we don't have a table for the rest of the winter. And she said, okay. And I said, I'm going to paint this like I beaded it because I'm missing it, beading so badly.
Because it takes so much time to complete a painting using Leah Yellowbird's style, she coached attendees carefully, explaining small details and techniques, like paint consistency.
I can see how if it's thicker, it'll kind of pop. Or I don't know the word I'm
It's a
trying to
ranch
use.
dressing situation.
Yeah.
And it's hard to describe because paint doesn't come in that consistency.
Yeah.
Class attendees had their work cut out for them. Even a simple design can take a very long time. Leah coached people by sharing that she makes mistakes on each painting and how to fix it.
And I told Lyra, there's not one painting that I've ever done that I haven't done that. I've always gone back and reblacked things.
Okay.
Because you make mistakes.
Leah Yellowbird took a big risk to follow the path of an artist, and it certainly paid off for her and the community that shared in her lesson.
What do I have to lose? Well, I think you're putting a dot. I've got nothing to lose. I only have to gain, and they're reaching out for me. These ancestors are, and they're offering me something. Do I take it, or do I spit in their face? So I took it. I quit the good job, and just kind of reset myself. And I just thought, is this something? Can I actually do this? Like, is this? I'm not an artist, am I? And then I decided to stop thinking about it. And just, if the ancestors were allowing me to do it, just go ahead and do it and keep doing it until they stopped. And then it got to the point where I was afraid to stop.
Thank you for listening to Native Art Festival, brought to you by KBFT 89.9 FM and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
You're listening to a series about outdoor activities from ricing to survival skills from a boys' fort perspective. Interviewing Karen Drift, can you tell us a little bit about growing up here, how important winter is to the Mother Earth?
We had to be outside all the time during the winter. Like we'd go down by the lake and we'd take shovels or whatever and make a skating rink. We went sliding. We had a big called Sox's Hill, but we didn't have no sled. We used to use old paper boxes, but we had all kinds. We did all kinds of things, and we just go around playing outside. Sometime making. Well, they never let us make a snowman because that was against our religion. They told us if we did make something like that, we had to tear it down before dark. But we did all that. We'd make like igloos and just found things to do outdoors in the winter.
You did a storytelling, a traditional Anishinaabe storytelling for the KBFT outdoor event tonight. Can you tell us how important storytelling it is?
Well, a long time ago, they call that Atsuke. That's storytelling in the winter. But the elders would tell stories to their own kids or whoever, and then not only storytelling, they do like teachings and sewing, and then plus my grandpa and grandma would tell stories to all of us kids. And it's really important that we do that just to bring back a lot of stuff that the kids some of them don't even know about what we used to do years and years ago. But yeah, my grandpa would tell us about a lot of medicines that he did.
No, you said you're related to John Bear Grease. Is dog sledding part of the Anishinaabe culture?
They would haul for us. Like they'd haul all that ice water up from the lake. How the dog is the Indian's best friend, helping the Indian, and they use them in ceremonies.
You talked about the Spirit Island here in Nett Lake a little bit at your storytelling. Can you tell us the importance of the lake? Or not the lake, but the island.
I was told that the island is a very spiritual place. Even the lake, the water in the lake. There's a large snake that people see once in a while. It comes from the front of Spirit Island and then goes all the way, I suppose, down the rivers, and nobody can stay on that island a night. A lot of times when we do ceremonies, we take food out to the island, and we sometimes we even take a ribbon shirt out there, small. They say whoever's guarding that island is little small men, and there's a lot of writings on the rocks there. And one year they try to send a crew out there to go and clean it, and she told them, no, don't go out there, don't, just leave it the way it is. There's somebody taking care of that island. And each time we go to the island there to either feast it or something, and we put a shirt there or something, blanket maybe, and that's just to show them, the spirits there, that there is somebody still caring for them yet. And we got to teach our to keep that up when we're gone.
Boys Fort Outdoor is produced by KBFT with support from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. You're listening to a series about outdoor activities from ricing to survival skills from a boys fort perspective.
Det Tageguneb.
Mm-hmm.
That's my Indian name, my real name, and my other name is Gene Goodsky, and I'm from Orr.
Did you go out wild ricing as a kid?
Oh yes.
Tell me what was that? What was the first time? When was the first time you went out ricing?
I was about 12 years old when I went out.
Mm-hmm.
I was over at my grandpa's house there, and this guy came in and he says, "I'm looking for a partner." He says, "And there's nobody around." Then he looked at me and he says, "How about you?" I said, "Yeah." Then he asked everybody else. Yeah, he's good. He's a pretty strong paddler.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out with him.
What was that like?
Oh, it was good. We got about 200 pounds, something like that, about 4 sacks. And to my surprise, he gave me half. At that time, they had a wild rice plant right outside a village, about a mile out. It was King's wild rice plant. And we'd turn in our rice there, and they bought it right there. So man, for a 12-year-old, I'd finished out to probably about 70%.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I had the big bucks.
How much was rice then?
Huh?
How much was rice then? Pound.
Probably a pound was about $5, but that was some good,
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money. I mean, good wages then.
So you paddled at first, and then I learned from a couple of other people that learning how to being the knocker is a really coveted, a very important position. Did you eventually move up the ladder?
Yeah, I did.
How would you say your knocking your skills were in that area?
Good.
Some people say you gotta have a rhythm to it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta have a rhythm.
What about knowing when the rice is ripe, versus when it's still green?
The green rice is a light colored green,
Mm-hmm.
and the ripe rice is a little darker,
Mm-hmm.
brownish green.
So when you
and,
would no, go ahead, finish. Sorry.
And when it's really ripe, then the blades of the grass are starting to die out, and then the leaves on the trees are starting to turn color in the fall, autumn colors. So that's how we knew when. What
was one year harvest that you remember that was really good or just really memorable?
It was all good back in the day.
What's back in the day? Tell me what.
Well, when I was probably about 50s, this lake here looked like a field. There was just one little strip of water. When I was before I started ricing, what they call jigging the rice.
Yeah, I've heard that term.
We have a wooden kettle about that big, and it's about that deep. And my dad dug a hole, probably about that deep, just so that kettle will fit. Had leather moccasins. They lace up to about here.
Mm-hmm.
And we put heavy socks on. And that was our job.
So you'd walk on the rice?
No, just kind of move your feet like that. It's like knocking.
Mm-hmm.
The polar looks for that green, that dark green, moves the canoe all over the place. He's always looking.
Mm-hmm. So the polar is kind of the scout, kind of moves.
It was better when you could see where the girls were.
So now before you said that the lake looked like a carpet, but now what does it look like now to you?
80% water.
Why do you think it's changed so much?
Today, the people don't make offerings. The medicine man would make the offering of the rice before anybody would take a bite. And after they made the offering, then we'd have a good feast. Man, I still remember that thing. Many different varieties. They even had, some people even brought, which was really good, white rice and raisins. That was good.
So people don't necessarily do that anymore.
They don't do that hardly anymore. But I think that's probably what my spiritual explanation of the lake. Because they say, well, if they don't want to give us back, then we'll take it.
Boys Fort Outdoor is produced by KBFT with support from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Sit back, relax, because you're listening to Native Music Fest, featuring the rockin' sounds of Native musicians from Boys Fort and beyond. Michael Lyons is from the Leech Lake Reservation and is the creator of the podcast Boozhoo Nanaboozhoo. Nanaboozhoo isn't a person, it's a puppet, and Lyons uses him to educate children and adults about Ojibwe language and culture. Nanaboozhoo talks about life on the reservation, and he plays some music too. Lyons says the puppets are a cross between Sesame Street and the 1998 film Smoke Signals, directed by Cheyenne Arapaho filmmaker Chris Eyre. Lyons is an illustrator and author by trade. It's only recently that he created the character Nanaboozhoo for his podcast. Lyons brought Nanaboozhoo to Nett Lake for a special performance.
And welcome back to Boozhoo Nanaboozhoo. My name is Natasha, and I'm here today with the very handsome
get out of your way.
Michael Lyons. Let's all give a round of applause.
The Puppet Podcast focuses on three things: an Ojibwe word of the day.
Who besides these guys over here can tell me the Ojibwe word for dog? Anamush from the back, good job. Anamush. Now Anamush has got kind of a southern accent.
Ojibwe stories.
In the Anishinaabe way. You know, this back in the days of the grandfathers, we didn't have Spider-Man, we didn't have Batman, but we had heroes, we had superheroes.
And music. Lyons used to work at the Leech Lake Tribal College. His office mate was an elder named Benny Tontz, whose first language was Ojibwe.
And for about 3 years, Benny would teach me phrases. I wasn't in his class, but I learned a lot from him.
Boozhoo Nanaboozhoo started as a comic strip. After seeing it, Lyons' younger brother encouraged him to bring the characters to life and put it online. One of Lyons' influences was Sesame Street. He grew up with only 2 channels in his household, NBC and PBS.
The Muppet Show came out, and on Monday nights you could watch those same Muppets, Kermit and a bunch of new guys, only this time they had guests like Alice Cooper or Elton John, or they'd have a musical guest every week.
The first time Lyons recorded a skit with the puppets, he said he put it on Facebook, not knowing what to expect.
But once I put it on Facebook, the people were so supportive that even though it was really bad, especially the early ones, it encouraged me to just keep doing it.
Lyons says his show isn't a lesson, but it is a fun way, especially for kids, to become comfortable saying words and singing in their own language.
Maybe I did love you.
For KBFT, I'm Allison Herrera. Native Music Fest is a production of the Nett Lake Radio Project and is supported by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Welcome to Boys Fort 90. Boys Fort history in 90 seconds.
Marcus is underneath the bucket, and he ties it. 3 seconds left. Here comes Goggle Eye. Another miracle, maybe. And he makes it in!
On Thursday, March 23rd, 2017, Boys Fort band member from Nett Lake, Minnesota, Cade Goggle Eye, led the Northwoods Grizzlies to a second-place seat in the Class 1A Division semifinals at the Minnesota State High School Boys Basketball Tournament. This was largely due to his miraculous buzzer-beating win over Central Minnesota Christian. The Blue Jays tied the close game 51-51 with a layup, and only 4 seconds remaining with no timeouts, the Grizzlies attacked ferociously. Goggle Eye, the sophomore guard, banked a three-pointer from midcourt just as the buzzer sounded, giving the high school team located in Cook a 54-51 victory over the number 3 ranked Central Minnesota Christian High School in the Williams Arena in Minneapolis. The Grizzlies moved on to the final championship game against Minneapolis North, who were ranked number 1 in the state. The Northwoods Grizzlies team took home the second place trophy that year, thanks to Cade Goggle Eye's unbelievable shot. Boys Fort 90 is produced by KBFT Radio and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
You're listening to Native Writers Fest, a series that features Native literary talent from Minnesota and beyond. Marcy Rendon is always writing. She grew up in northern Minnesota as a citizen of the White Earth Nation and went to college at Moorhead before moving to the Twin Cities for a job.
And I was going to go for 3 years, and I kind of been stuck there ever since. And I worked for years in prison programs and in the Heart of the Earth Survival School and their prison program, working in the different prisons, state prisons in the state, working with Native folks who were pre-release. And then I worked as a therapist, counselor, in outpatient programs after that, and then in an inpatient program. And all that time I was writing, like I was writing poetry, I was, just writing short stories or whatever, but I didn't know that I could actually be a writer.
The company she worked for went out of business, and she ended up getting a year's worth of severance. During that time, she said she discovered her passion for writing.
And at the end of that year, when the severance was up, I decided to do what I could to try and make a living as a writer. And so I've been doing that since 1990, which has meant that basically I write anything that pays.
Since then, she's had numerous books for children and adults published. She's also had plays published and produced in English and Ojibwe. She also wrote educational materials for school.
I think I'm always making up stories in my head. And there's always some kind of storyline going, or I'll be in a situation and I'll think, I could write a story about that. And then I'll start creating characters and things happening in my head.
Rendon says she doesn't necessarily think about her heritage when she writes. She remembers a play she wrote when she tried to make it non-native, but it just didn't work.
Then we had the script read by a group of non-native kids, and it was so clear that this was an Indian script, and I had totally failed in what I was trying to do of take anything native out of it. Like, I didn't know how to do it. And I think that who we are when we're writing when we're doing anything from who we are, like from our heart, from our soul, it's like so much of who we are is native that it's just there, even though you may think you're not.
Rendon has written 2 crime novels, Murder on the Red River and her latest, Girl Gone Missing. She says people have a fascination with crime. She says she has a lot of Native friends that like to watch Law & Order SVU or Criminal Minds.
But I really do think it's rooted in the historical past and the historical trauma, and we're trying to make sense of that reality. And I think that for me, the writing about it and writing these stories where there's resolution, where there's the woman Cash in the stories, she's helping solve the crimes, and she's using her own physical power, her own emotional, mental powers to get at some better ending than what could possibly be happening.
The main character in the book is a 19-year-old girl named Cash. She's aged out of the foster care system, and she befriended a county cop named Wheaton. She helps Wheaton solve murders and find some young girls who've gone missing. She says the publisher was drawn to those characters.
The publisher accepted them because she loved the character, not because it was a Native book. Like she didn't understand the Native stuff in it. But she liked the characters, and I think that that's the strength of my writing and fiction, is that I have these really strong characters that it seems like anybody can identify with.
For anybody that wants to write, Rendon has this piece of advice.
That I really think it's important that our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren hear our stories from our voices, and that we're currently in a time in the publishing world where publishers are looking for the authentic Native American voice. And so for people who are writing, you got to submit.
For KBFT, I'm Allison Herrera. Native Writers Fest is a production of the Nett Lake Radio Project and is supported by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Welcome to Boys Fort 90. Boys Fort history in 90 seconds. The Minnesota Chippewa tribe flag was created in 1934 because of the Reorganization Act. All 7 tribes in Minnesota utilized this flag. When the different tribes became established, it was necessary for each to have a flag of their own. The director of the Boys Fort Reservation at the time, Fred McDougall, set up a community contest to design a seal for the band. Unfortunately, no one participated, and McDougall went on to create it himself, recognizing the great importance to represent the tribe for years to come. In the middle of the flag lies the Boys Fort seal. There's a circle. In the circle, there are 4 directions, making 4 quadrants. In the upper left quarter, there are trees, representing what the name Boys Fort means, strong woods. The lower left quarter is brown, which represents the Mother Earth. In the upper right quadrant represents our sacred spirit island on Nett Lake. In the lower right quadrant is blue and has waves representing the lakes of Boys Fort. In the top half of the seal you can see 2 spirit ducks flying in the sky. That is to represent the most common wildlife found in Nett Lake. Directly in the middle there's a huge green rice stalk, and that is what Nett Lake is known for. It's wild rice. Beyond the stalk of rice is an orange sun in a raising or setting position. McDougall tried to include everything that represented the Anishinaabe people and the land of the reservation. The Boys Fort Band officially adopted the seal and the flag in a council meeting in the 1970s. The seal and the flag is still utilized today and proudly represents the Boys Fort Band of Chippewa. Boys Fort 90 is produced by KBFT Radio and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Stories, history, culture, Lost River. A radio project about the Boys Fort Band of Chippewa and their rich heritage.
You were talking about Spirit Island, and you said it's really not what people think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate on that just a little bit?
People think that that's the significance of spirituality. It is in a sense, because the people that come down there contact the people. The people that went down there told them about the island, what there was an island, and that's where people got the idea of where to go. Either they went to Little Fork, which runs right into International Falls. From there they go all over the place. People used to use this lake for ricing. That was the most significant, beautiful thing about this lake, was the ricing. You can remember your days. Your dad and them used to pole around here. They had to stand on top of the seat to pole because the rice was so high. And my mom, when they went out ricing, they come out with about 5 gunny sacks full of rice. And ducks, oh Christ, after they got done ricing, they just went out there and kicked ass and ducks. But you know, like I told what's his name? I said, "You're making it really hard for us people to make a living out there because we don't have but two roads around this lake." That's the only thing I can really see about the boys' sport is it took so long to get somewhere that sometimes the people had to camp. Like they used to pick berries all the time around the swamp, and they had to go by car for so long, then they had to walk for so long, and they had to camp there. You know, a lot of blueberries out there. Used to be really a lot of blueberries. And that's usually about the people that come down here. Used to get directions from Spirit Island. There used to be a river all the way, coming all the way through to Nett Lake. You can see them ways over on the river if you go down there where the people used to camp. Another way they used to come in through that Pete's Creek. But you can see that road still in the goddamn where they used to knock over everything. Then the people used to come out there on the road. They used to walk in sometimes. You get a ride to the road and they take them to the edge of the swamp and leave them there. That's the only 3 ways that I know of how to get into Nett Lake.
That's all they had back then.
Yeah.
Just those 3 ways.
Before they used to land an airplane there to let the people on and to come around. They used to let the airplanes land there. Then they come around and said that they couldn't do that because it was a spiritual lake and there was supposed to need no motors on that lake at all. But I know a lot of people that broke that. We won't get into that today.
Lost River is a production of the Nett Lake Radio Project and is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
This is Native Fashion, a KBFT series about the tradition of regalia making and the people who do it. You look very beautiful. Well, first tell me your name and tell me where you're from.
My name is Ashley Goodsky. I'm here. I'm a member of the Boys Fort Reservation.
And tell me a little bit about the regalia making that you do and what your specialty is and how you got into it and maybe who taught you.
I wouldn't say I have a specialty. I just kind of go with the flow. I kind of started beading when I was very young, and I learned from my grandma Arlene, who has been making regalia and beading items for as long as I could remember. So I just she showed me like how to work the needle, and I just kind of went from there. So,
what do you like to make?
Well, I think I kind of took in a liking to beading. I had hand sewn my son's first regalia, traditional regalia, when he was like 4, and I saw it in a dream. I saw my grandma showed me. She laid it out, and my grandma has been passed away since 2009. And I had a dream that she showed me this regalia for my son, and so that's kind of where I got the motivation to continue making what I had seen. So, and then he wore it when I finished it, and everything that I did just kind of came together. So,
tell me what it looked like, the regalia that you made for your son.
The flowers, I guess, were, say the colors that were in there were black, like yellow fringe, yellow flowers, white flowers, blue, and then green. The yellow was what brought everything out the most. That's what I enjoyed the most, and my son loved it because he saw me make it, and he was there with me the whole time. I had him helping me measure things. I had him pick out colors. I had him feel things, and I just kind of helped me envision how I saw him wearing it. So I really didn't know what I was making until after I got done handling the objects and watching the expressions on his face and what he liked and what he didn't like. I guess I didn't have a plan. I just really went with it.
That's really, I think that's really what strikes me about regalia making is that it's a really personal process. I mean, you're making something that you just said it was in a dream, and then your son was touching the materials, and that's a really beautiful, I think that's a really beautiful way to make something for somebody to wear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was funny too because I went through 3 sewing machines, and finally I had to just sew it by hand And it finally, that was the only way I completed it, was by hand sewing it. I couldn't use sewing machines. Like, my machines broke down where I couldn't use them. So finally I just started sewing by hand, and that's just really how it all came together. Well, now he grew out of it, so I passed it down to my nephew, who is just now starting to walk. So I was able to resize it. Yeah, I was still good enough to where I could resize it and just reuse the beaded design. So my nephew, who is now coming into their circle, he can wear it now.
Beautiful. And have you made any other regalia for any of the other family members or for yourself?
Well, no, like right now I am making a T-shaped pattern dress for my daughter, who is just now starting to walk. I haven't really sewn like that with a sewing machine, so this is definitely my first time beading or sewing that kind of technique anyways. So it takes patience, and like I said, I don't know what I'm doing, so I really am going with the flow, and you can see it in my work. But they say practice takes perfect, so I just got to keep going along and just be proud of what I'm making. I'm not embarrassed by all. They say nothing's perfect, so that's what I go with.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Native Fashion is produced by the Nett Lake Radio Project and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
You are listening to KBFT, Minnesota Artist Profiles, a series featuring artists and musicians of Minnesota. Brought to you by KBFT 89.9 FM and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Rich Mattson is a musician, songwriter, producer, and legend from the Iron Range, Minnesota.
My name is Rich Mattson, and I am from West Eveleth on the Iron Range of Minnesota, and I currently live in Sparta, and that's not far from where I grew up. I'm a musician and a recording engineer, a music producer, and I play guitar, I play bass, and I kind of dabble in the drums too. Mostly I'm a guitar player and a singer and a songwriter, and I enjoy making music for my own purposes with my own band, and I enjoy recording other bands and encouraging them and working with them in my recording studio, Sparta Sound.
I can't love you, baby, like you need me to.
I've been recording for about, like I said, about 30 years. I started in Minneapolis. I lived down there for about 18 years, from 1987 to 2005.
Do you have any awards?
While I was living in Minneapolis, our band got an award for Best Americana Band, and that was in 2003. And I was named Best Songwriter by the City Pages in Minneapolis in the year 2000. And that was with my band Old Yeller. And Old Yeller actually got a couple more awards, Best Rock Band and Best Rock Album in 2006 and in the Minnesota Music Awards. And I also got Best Producer that year. So we kind of swept the rock category, which is pretty cool.
What are you influenced by?
I have a lot of influences, I guess. My grandparents, musically, I think my main influence, I got to say Neil Young, probably my favorite musical artist. Neil Young, I just love him because he just keeps on delivering the goods. He keeps making records, and he keeps being influential to, he's just a positive influence. He's never been, all messed up, or, he's just always kind of done the right thing and kept producing more and more music, and I just love all of it. And Neil's my guy. I love his guitar playing. I love his songwriting, his lyrics. I love his voice. And there's so many guys like that in rock and roll that I follow, and Neil just keeps delivering. Another thing I love about Neil is he's in touch with the environment and, helping others and just being a positive force in the world. And he's an inventor and he writes books and he's kind of all over the place. And I like that about him. I also, one of my favorites is Bob Dylan. He's another one of those guys that just keeps on delivering and, he's an artist. And one thing when you're an artist, I mean, there's been times where I felt like giving up, where I thought that, I wasn't going to be able to make a living off it forever and I'd have to give it up at some point. But, and I've tried just not doing anything and in art and, getting a regular job and doing that. But I always gotta create. I have to keep doing it. It keeps me sane. It keeps me busy, and it's just something that if you're born with it and it's something you like doing and you feel a need to do it and it makes people happy, you got to keep doing it. And the greatest challenges to being an artist is really just wondering if it's worth it. And, you're creating something out of nothing.
Well, I never met my neighbor.
You're creating something from your mind, an idea that you have. You get a vision or you hear a song that you never heard before, and it's just coming from the ether. It's just coming from nowhere. And you get it out of your head. It's never a bad thing to create something.
How has the COVID pandemic affected you, your band, and your music?
Definitely a lot of challenges for me. One thing that I've said a few times during this whole thing, this is the longest I've gone my whole life without playing music with my friends. I mean, I've always had a band together, and we'd get together and make noise and, just have a good time rehearsing or just making up songs or just jamming, making a bunch of noise. So the biggest challenge really is not being able to do that like all winter long. Is just finding different things to do, stepping outside the box, and fortunately through my connections I was able to record some guitar tracks for people. I started making videos, posting them on YouTube, just songs that I've learned over the years. I'd just set up my camera and play a tune, original songs, cover songs. And after a while I had 179 songs that I posted on YouTube. I was also working on Rich Manson and the North Stars album called Skylights that we just put out in February. And I really just kind of whittled away at that through the summer and winter months, getting that to where I like the sound of it. And I had a lot of spare time to work on the mixing and a lot of alone time and time with my girlfriend Jermaine. And we just really worked on that record and worked on her music and singing together. Yeah, and there's still challenges. The shows that we're going to be playing are going to be outdoors, and now I just worry that we're going to get rained out. So hopefully the weather stays nice, and the weather gods will smile on us, and we can have some good, fun shows outdoors this summer.
Where can we find more information on you?
I've got a website. It's www.richmatsonmusic.com, and that's kind of like a hub with links to my bio, and the bio is pretty detailed, kind of covers all my years of playing music. And there's a discography link where you can see all the albums that I've completed and made available. Most of those are on bandcamp.com, and I've got a Sparta Sound band page on bandcamp.com, and that web address is spartasound.bandcamp.com. And I think there's probably like 20 albums available on there, and you can just listen to them. You don't even have to pay for them. You could just listen to them. So that's Rich Manson and the North Stars albums. There's Jermaine Gemberling albums, Bitter Spills albums, and a whole bunch of solo stuff too. And there's another page for my old band. We were called the Glen Russells, and that's a separate page on Bandcamp as well. Another group that I play with, it's a folk duo called the Bitter Spills, and that's just me and my buddy Grant Johnson. And what we do is just we're keeping the folk tradition alive. We play old folk tunes and some stuff that we wrote. We play in the bars and we play outdoor festivals and wherever we can. But he's one of my best friends, and he and I we just get together and do that picking and grinning.
Do you have words of encouragement to future artists and musicians?
Just create. If you have it in you, if you're a creative person, it's a gift. You got to use it. Don't ever stop. It's something that you'll always want to do, and find the time to do it. Even if it's just for yourself. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to have these big rock and roll dreams of taking over the world. Just keep creating, and eventually if you feel like sharing it, share it with the world. Get it out there. There's so many ways to find your path and get your music or your art, whatever you like to do. Word gets around. If it's something that you love doing, you got to find time to do it, and you get better at it and better at it, and eventually you get the confidence to share it, and then the people that you share it with will share it with others, and word gets around, and eventually people are calling you to make appearances or buying your product, or you just gotta go for it. I really believe that everyone's got a purpose in life. You got to find that purpose, and sometimes you got to look for it, and that's the hardest part, is finding what you enjoy doing the most. You just got to find your passion in life. Follow your dreams.
Anything else you would like to add?
I just want to say KBFT Radio has just been such a great resource. It's they're so in touch with the heritage and for encouraging people to understand their culture and create and just be part of the community. And it's just such a great resource for the North Country, and I'm really glad that it's there. And it's just cool that, there's such a wide variety of music and educational programs, and just they're trying to do the right thing, and I really love it.
Thank you for listening to Minnesota Artist Profiles, brought to you by KBFT and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. You're listening to KBFT's Virtual Music Fest, a live virtual music series brought to you by KBFT and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Hello, welcome to KBFT Virtual Music Fest interview, sponsored by KBFT 89.9 FM, Boys Fort Tribal Radio, and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Today we're here with a special guest, a Minnesota-based musician. He's a vocalist and songwriter of some of the world's most notable hard rock acts, such as Pyramaze, Avian, Balance of Power, and many more. He also has his own record label, Nightmare Records, and they've been around since the 1990s.
Exciting.
Hey, Lance, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
This is so awesome to have, for the station, we hardly get any hard rock acts. And, I've had my eye on you for a really, really long time. I first saw you, actually, I buy a lot of music on Amazon, like CDs and records and vinyl. And I bought some prog CDs from Amazon there. And this was, early 2000. I'm talking 2003, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And they sent me a promo disc. It had all kinds of bands. There's probably 20 bands on there, and Pyramaze was on there.
Oh,
and
cool.
With that tune, Souls of Pain, I listened to the whole CD. The only band that really stuck out was Pyramaze, It was because of your vocals.
Wow, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, the song, it has a cool guitar lead kind of hook in there that starts off, and then your voice just takes it even further. Really reminded me of like something like Queensryche. Jeff Tate is really comparable, and I could really see like he's probably one of your influences, but
He was one of my earlier influences, yeah.
you're like right up there with some of the best vocalists in the world, I think.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yeah, I was inspired by the likes of Steve Walsh from Kansas and Steve Perry from Journey, and I love Brad Delp's voice from Boston. And I mean, I could go on and on and on, but the ones that stuck out to me were the guys that just could sing their butt off, you know, and they had these high register, beautiful melodies, you know, but they could reach the stratosphere, and that just was inspiring to me. Another one would be Geddy Lee. Early Rush really was a big thing for me. I loved them, and then I started playing out right out of high school in the clubs, and at the time that was a long time ago, 1981, and you know, some things like the Cars were big at that time. You know, not really what I was listening to. I mean, Styx and Journey and all that were definitely huge, but a little bit different than a lot of the stuff, I guess. Yeah. To get that voice that you have, what kind of training did you have to go through? Or Trial and error. It was all just me trying to mimic other singers, and having gigs and having to practice and get through the gigs, you know, and having to build up the endurance and being able to hit the notes, you know. So yeah, it was just it didn't start that way, you know. It really didn't. I think I've always enjoyed singing along with good music. So it just was a matter of how much I focused on it and was doing it a lot more often. And if you're doing it in front of people and you're trying to entertain them, you're really focused. So you get better at it if you're doing it a lot. And we were playing a lot, you know. In the beginning, we were playing every weekend. And even though it was I'd say a C band, you know, a crummy little C club band, we were having a lot of fun and getting practice. You know, you just get in there and get your feet wet, keep doing it, and you get better.
Yeah, but your original music, it's not like any of the cover music that you started off playing. You know, you like
no, it's not. Well, you know, you evolve into different things, and the originals, yeah, I mean, you start to write and it's a labor. You don't really know where to start. You have no idea what you're doing, and you just start writing ideas down, and you know they're not very good, and you try and get them better, and nothing really clicks, and then one day it just starts working, you know, and you just keep at it until you go, oh, that's good. That's pretty good. I like that.
Be sure to watch the full interview and performance on KBFT's Facebook page and YouTube channel by simply searching for KBFT. Thank you for listening to KBFT's Virtual Music Fest, brought to you by KBFT and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. You're listening to Anishinaabe, Ogima, Boys Fort leaders from the present to the past.
Buju, Ginu Gijik, Indigenous, Ajijak, Indu Dem, Gawa Bobby Ganekog, Indu Njaba, Inda Ma, Gamasquawa Kokog. My name is Ginu Gijik, Golden Eagle Day, And I'm from the White Earth Reservation. I live in Cass Lake.
Gnu Gizik holds a doctorate degree in public policy and administration. His research focused on Ojibwe chiefs in traditional leadership roles. Gizik interviewed 5 hereditary chiefs in Canada, Red Lake, and Mille Lacs.
I asked them, what does it mean to be a chief, and what does a chief do?
He found out there are many kinds of leaders: warriors, spiritual leaders, and those who are respected in the community.
We got to look at what is the smallest unit of leadership, and that would be the hunting group. Families would get together in the summer, but in the winter times they break up into small family groups, and they'd have a leader in that hunting group. And the hunting knowledge that person knew of the animals and knew of the terrain, that meant life or death.
Being a chief wasn't just a one-person job, as Gizik explains.
So everybody put their faith and hope into that hunter leader because their life depended on it. It literally depended on it. They would die if they didn't succeed. And then when they would come back together, the hunting group, they would come back into their clans. The clans would unite, and then you would have your clan chief in the summertime. A chief is not a director. A chief is a spokesperson of the group. They have to learn how to listen and speak on their behalf. That's it. They're not a director. They are a spokesperson.
Gizik's research tells us that people lived in their clan areas. But once the fur trade decimated resources, these same clans were forced to move west.
There would be multi-clan communities, and they would default to the Loon clan or the Crane clan. They would be kind of like the default spokesperson.
The life of a chief was not easy.
They were the poorest person in the community. If somebody was having a hard time, didn't have anything, they would give them stuff to help them. They'd give them their food. They'd take the shirt off of their back. They were always the poorest one. It's like a vow of poverty when you're the chief or the leader.
Leadership wasn't just for men. Women also took on Ogima roles, but in a different way than their male counterparts. They were just as important, though.
The women were in charge of the inside circle, which meant the community. And inside the house, they were boss of the house. They were the thinkers. They were like, we need wood, we need this, we need these supplies. And the guy's job was to go out and provide, protect and provide. The man's job was he was in charge of the outside circle. Outside the community where he hunted, he had to know every inch of land. He needed to know where it was safe, where the enemy was, where to go, where not to go. He had to know where the food and the resources were.
Back in the day, decision-making was very different from our modern-day tribal governments. Decisions took way longer, over the course of weeks. Gizik explained there were no half-hour agenda meetings.
They never had to listen to anybody. I mean, if they thought, that's really stupid, we ain't going to do that. You guys want to walk off the cliff? Go ahead. We ain't going with you. You didn't have to. It wasn't like national law like the United States, which is national law. You have to go by the majority. Whatever they say, you have to do it.
Gizik is part of the Crane clan, something he didn't know growing up. He takes that knowledge and the principles that go along with it seriously.
But part of the Crane clan is the Crane is leadership clan. Ogi Ma we win. And so my job is to learn about leadership, and leadership is not being bossy. Leadership is not giving directives. Leadership is working with everybody and listening and saying what they say and going and meeting all of their needs. Shirt off my back, whatever. And so if you see me walking down the road, don't try to get my shirt off my back because you heard this. But if you really need it, of course, I would give it to you. Their power comes from whatever the people give the chief. They instill their faith and their belief and their trust into the chief to speak on their behalf. So the power is the people, not the chief.
Anishinaabe Ogima was brought to you by the Nett Lake Radio Project and by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
You're listening to Native Art Festival, a series produced by KBFT Radio and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
My name is Nate. I'm painting, and that's what we call Paint with Nate, right?
Nate Loeckers tells KBFT how he got started as an artist.
What got me into painting? Man, I think actually Mickey Mouse did, Disney World. Watching the Disney cartoons, and I started drawing a lot, and then painting. I just got that love for color. So.
Nate tells us how all of his Paint with Nate classes are a little bit different.
A lot of classes I do are usually more adults, for one. I do a lot of kids classes, and they're usually outside. I guess that'd be like one of the bigger things that they're outside. It was rainy today, so we couldn't do that. They're all different. I'm trying to think of like all the classes are all different. There's differences in everyone.
While Nate Loeckers taught basic painting skills at Paint with Nate, he also talked about other things that are important to him and his art.
Technically, it's more about blending. It's about a lot of blending. But what I like to talk about a little bit more is about trees. I like to talk about trees and how lucky we are that we have so many trees around here. A lot of people take them for granted that we don't. That you forget that people come here to see how beautiful this area is, and we live in it. How awesome is that?
Nate's joyful style of teaching catered to everybody in attendance, adults and children alike.
What this brush is called?
A big brush.
It's a big brush, yes, it is. Ding, 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 ding. Big brush. What else?
Big brush. Big brush.
Big brush.
Big brush.
Flat brush.
Flat.
For being artists, they don't have very creative names for things, do they?
I'm
They call it a
gonna
flat brush.
do the black.
That's all they call it, flat brush. So you got a flat brush, a big brush. You don't need to scoop up all of our paint like it's porridge or it's, like your Rice Krispies in the morning. You don't need to scoop. What else can I tell you?
What did they paint at Paint with Nate? Well, this attendee, named Rose, describes how the painting looks.
A sunset with a pretty pink, purple, blue background, and pine trees leaning in, like you're looking at a sunset.
Nate Loeckers not only taught basic painting skills at Paint with Nate, but he also taught the importance of having a good time while you paint.
Technically, they learn about blending. Like I said, they learn about blending. They learn what colors don't mix well with others, like the warms and the cools. A lot of times, they don't want to mix. You don't want to put the pinks in there with the blues, because then you'll get browns. We don't want brown in our sky. You learn how to handle a brush properly, how to not have it get out of control, have the brush strokes nice and thin, how to get thinner lines out of them. What else? Yeah, how to have fun. How to not get paint on your neighbor. Don't drink the paint water kind of deal.
Rose tells us her favorite lesson in Paint with Nate.
Don't drink the paint water. I find that hilarious. If you do, you'll grow a beard. Or a colorful mohawk.
Nate also teaches outside his Paint with Nate classes. He brings his love for art into everyday conversations. He reminds the people around him that art isn't limited to just painting.
No matter what you do, love what you do. Make anything that you do an art form. Whether it be you're talking. I was talking to a guy out there. He says he's a butcher. I was like, that's an art form right there. Whatever you do is an art form. Just take pride in it.
Nate Loeckers leaves us some final advice from Paint with Nate.
I think I've said this before, but it's very important, is don't be so hard on yourself. I mean, you are going to make mistakes or happy accidents, but don't be so hard on yourself. Just have fun, enjoy the moment, enjoy it, just do it. Don't think about what it's going to turn out like as much as the process of doing it, and that you are able to be on this earth and be able to paint.
Thank you for listening to Native Art Festival, brought to you by KBFT 89.9 FM and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Welcome to Powwow the Songs, a look into powwow gatherings in Minnesota, their historical and traditional significance, and the integral role of the drums, the singers, and their songs. And here's your host, Terry Goodsky.
Good evening. This is Terry Goodsky. I'm sitting here with Zach Hartliv at Hunting Moon Powell, Milwaukee, 2014. Zach, could you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Bonjour, Terry. It's good to see you again, man. I give my formal introduction in Ojibwe. Bonjour, Zungi Gnu, Indigenous Cause, Magizi and Dude, Mushkazibing and Dunjaba. That means, my name is Zungi Gnu. I'm of the Magizi clan, and I come from Mushkazibing. I'm 26 years old, and I'm a youth coordinator for the Birch Hill Community House on the Bad River Reservation.
Could you tell me a little bit about, I know we kind of discussed this a little bit earlier, could you tell me a little bit about, the buck and doe dance? I've interviewed a couple of people earlier, but they kind of forgot some information about it,
My grandpa was a keeper of that song, Vincent Bender. He, you knew those songs that go with that. They're starting to come kind of scarce. I know a few people that still know those songs. I can catch them. I don't remember them that well myself, but it's basically just emulating that animal and the characteristics and the attitudes. So there'll be several women in the dance arena, and then you'll have an older buck and a younger buck. They'll both fight off for who gets to keep those does, so to say.
Oh, okay. All right. Could you tell me a little bit about the swan dance?
Yeah, from what I understand, I hear from my elders is that, we get a lot of our teachings from nature, and the swan is one of the leaders the leaders of the winged, and I hear that they bring the changing of the seasons, both spring into summer and fall into winter. So the seasons change. They're indicator species that the change is coming. So in that dance, it's a dance for the women, and it's a kind of almost like a round dance, like a 2-beat song, and the women will go and emulate that animal. The swans, they do the flying V, so they'll take turns going back and forth, forming that V, and also coming back together in that straight line. They'll have the leader of the dance, which will usually be an elder, and then it just goes from there to the youngest. It's almost like follow the leader dance.
What about the fish dance? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
That's that's a dance for the men. That the swan dance is for the women, but fish dance is we're doing that to recognize that it's time for that species to come and do their circle of life. So we will do it usually when the fish run, to celebrate that the fish either are coming or we want them to come. So with the fish dance, we'll have again an older male will lead it out, and then just kind of go down in age until the youngest one, and he'll be the tail. And they just go through the stages. They go through going upstream and laying their eggs, and then through the whole spawning process. You get to see it, and it's really fun to watch.
Could you tell me, we've known each other for a long time. Could you tell me a little bit about the hand drum songs, what they represent and what the hand drum means to the Ojibwe people?
Well, I'm still learning that. A little bit of what I know of that is, more of the, what would you say, popular culture today. It's we use that Cree style scratch beat, and we use those round dance hand drum songs as kind of courting songs or love songs, try and get our snag on. Hey.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about your travels as a singer, and plus, as a positive role model in your community?
Yeah, I've always had this connection with the drum, starting from when I was a baby. My dad used to carry around a bass drum and just put a turn it upside down at night, put a pillow inside, and that would be my crib. So I always had a strong connection to the drum. I was fortunate to have this gift, and it's taken me pretty far. You know, that my talents have allowed me to see both oceans. I got to travel from New York all the way to California, just you know, staying with that drum. He called it our grandpa. And because of what he represents, you know, that respect. You have to act a certain way around the drum, and that's what I try and instill in my youth that I teach. You know, if you want to be around here, you have to act a certain way. So before we even bring the drum out, I'll talk with him, sometimes for days, before we even, you know, touch a drumstick or get to look at the drum.
Mm-hmm. Well, you kind of forgot to mention, you know, about the fish dance and the swan dance and the buck and doe dance. You forgot to mention that before you actually do these sort of things, you guys would have a feast and would ask the spirits, you know, to kind of bless us with the whatchamacallit of whatever animal that you were doing. That's one thing that you forgot to mention before you guys go into it's actually part of the ceremony, but you forgot the feast part.
Yeah, yeah. I partake a lot in the song and dance part of it. Yeah, but it's a big deal.
Sorry, could you kind of tell me what the drum means to you?
I just feel at home there. That's, you know, every time I sit down, I feel that Dewey gun means like the heartbeat. So I just feel really close to that. That's my grandpa.
All right. Well, looks like could you tell me a little bit more about, you know, the drum and how it pertains to your community? You know, what actually, when the drum actually came to your community, how did it change things, the history of your community, if you could?
Well, I'm not you know, an account on it or, you know, an elder, but from what I understand, it was a time for celebration. You know, we had our ceremony drums. From what I understand, it was like a social to more or less arrange some get-togethers for families. You know, we almost like setting up marriages, things like that. That we call them Nimia Ding, our celebrations. So we get together, you know, according to season or the month. You know, we always had something going on. I just learned that not too long ago that when we moved our powwow grounds, they were having powwow at the same time in the other community across the lake. You know, I'm from Bad River. They were partying in Madeline Island and Red Cliff. And we'd have bonfires, and they said that you could see those fires from across the lake. And I thought, wow, that must have been a sight to see. You know, because it was before electricity was really around. And just to see that, I think that would have been something just amazing to behold. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your roles as a lead singer. You know, as a person that starts off the.
Well, you have to know those songs. To be a good lead singer, first you have to be a good dancer, I think. You know, we all start there, and we all started in the circle, kind of far back from the drum, but then we get to move a little closer. If you dance, then you start to learn the songs, because you're dancing to them. Then you get a little closer to the drum, and you get to sit down and learn different beats. But then, you know, becoming that lead singer, you already know that what style of dance to sing for. You know those beats, then you learn those songs. And some singers are really fortunate to have that gift of song making. You know, I was blessed to know quite a few great song makers, but it takes a lot of heart, because you have to be that one that everybody depends on. You have to be the rock, you know. Sometimes we go into, you know, contest powwows, and everybody's looking to you. What are we gonna sing now? So you got to be ready, on your toes, and just make that decision for the good of the group. Not only that, you know, it's not just about the song. You know, you have to take care of the singers make sure that they're all taken care of. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. A lot of work. Making sure that they're fed and everyone knows the song, and you have to trust each other.
I notice when you go to powwows, you're kind of a grass dancer. Could you explain a little bit about your style and what your outfit means to you?
Yeah. The outfit I have now was actually a gift from a lady who saw me dancing a while back. And I kind of fell off, and I just kind of went to singing. But she remembered that I danced, and she made an outfit for her husband, but it was kind of too skinny. It got too big. She didn't want to waste an outfit, so she thought of me right away, and she wanted to gift that outfit. So she did that in that way, and I kind of picked it back up. That's the style I do. It's a little bit of a mix between the traditional and contemporary styles. From my understanding, the dance originated from the Omaha people, and it was actually a society of warriors that were wounded and they could not dance their traditional dances anymore because there was real hard, intricate footwork. So it's a little bit more laid back than the traditional, but that's the traditional style. And then the contemporary, there's wild moves and all kinds of cool steps that you can mix up in there. That's kind of where I got that, where I'm at with that.
Well, if there's anything that you could pass on to the younger generation, what would you say to them?
Joanie dig. That means take care of one another. There's a lot of things out there, a lot of outside influences, and a lot of historical trauma that we have to deal with. That's that kind of brings us apart. But that's a whole other discussion. I could go on about that for a while. But take care of each other, and take care of each other for tomorrow. Forget about what happened yesterday. Just live for today, and just love each other. Take care of each other.
All right, Zach. Well, I'd like to thank you very much, for your time and your wisdom. I'd like to wish the Bucks a very good day at Hunting Moon Powwow here. Seen the videos on Facebook and on your webpage. You guys are sounding pretty tough today. Keep up the good work and keep that drum beat, hard and strong, and get those voices, rocking. Thank you.
We will. Regrets.
Powwow the Songs is produced by KBFT, Boys Fort Tribal Community Radio, with support from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Online at kbft.org.
You are listening to KBFT, Minnesota Artist Profiles, a series featuring artists and musicians of Minnesota. Brought to you by KBFT 89.9 FM and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Today we meet with Josh Danderand, bassist and songwriter for the 5-piece indie rock band, The Moonlight Community.
This is Josh Danderand for The Moonlight Community. The Moonlight Community is originally from St. Cloud, Minnesota. We met there when we were all going to college. I, at the time, was going to school for music education. We have 2 albums out right now. Our first one was called The Gateway, and our second one is called Anin. And both albums very much show the versatility in our band, in our writers, and in our music in general. If you were to try to categorize it in one simple genre, I would probably say rock, maybe alternative. But it also just depends on the song. We have a song called Dreams from the new album Anin.
Me formulating the plan is just half of the battle.
Just half of the battle.
Then one day I'll be big like Cobain in Seattle.
Cobain in Seattle.
If you're feeling you're up in the creek with no paddle.
That's hip hop. And it was our first one ever, and it's a crowd favorite. We have some beautiful slow ballads like Save Yourself, our second single from Anin.
Save yourself from the certain doom that's ahead of you. Save yourself from the burning fire that will bring you down. Save yourself.
We have some heavy metal. We have one song called No from The Gateway that's heavy. We have one song called Stars from Anin that's heavy. We have a 50s style sock hop song called Marble Eyes that's on Anin. We have a techno song called Galaxy on Anin. You name it, and we've either done it or we intend to do it. We almost want to be a band that could replace the shuffle program on your Spotify or iTunes. We'd love it if you just wanted to listen to whatever, right? You're vacuuming or you're doing dishes, and you want to listen to lots of different varieties of music. We'd love to be the band that you just plug our name in and you get everything you want. And with the different backgrounds that we have as individual musicians, we're becoming very good at succeeding in that goal. We all listen to all different types of music, and you can hear it in the individual songwriter's influence. And also, when it comes to writing, we don't think of genres. I think we think more of what's happening in our life the day that the song gets written. We write about things at face value sometimes, like falling in love or something, or getting your heart broken. We also write about things that need to be interpreted by the listener. Purpose of life, meaning, where are we? Why are we? So just like in the genre, musically, our topics and our lyrics, we try to incorporate all different types of meanings and stuff behind our lyrics.
I am lost in this world. I can't seem to find my way. Every right turn curves left into the wrong. And now I guess I'll just move along.
If someone out there is listening and they want to start doing something creative, whether they're writing poetry, starting a band, trying to get their physical artwork out there, man, just go for it. Always go for it. There's really no downside to it. The worst thing that could happen is people say they don't like it, but whatever. That's not a big deal because other people will say that they do like it. I've found a lot of time that negativity only comes from people who want you to not be happy. So when you realize that, then actually nothing should ever really upset you or bring you down or stop you from creating, because if they're being negative, it's just because they're not very happy with the fact that you're happy. So once you realize that, it becomes pretty easy to not care about any negativity and then love the positivity, and just ride with it. And, when it comes down to it, if you're creating something, it's yours anyway, right? Of course you want to share it with others and you want to bring joy or whatever emotion you're trying to emote with your art. The first thing is you got to love it, and it's something you created and that you're proud of, and that's awesome.
For God.
But I love playing with my bandmates, James, Matt, AJ, and Dante. When we're playing a live show and we're just nailing it and we're jumping all over the stage and swinging our guitars and just rocking out, there's just nothing better. Close your eyes, absorb all that sound and all those lights, just knowing that your best friends are right there on stage with you doing what you're doing and you're clicking. That's a great reward right there. Also, when you write a song and then you bring it to your band and it becomes a full band song and then you record it and then you get to listen to it, that's a pretty good reward too. Challenges during COVID. Well, this one has an asterisk by it. This one's a little different because this one has definitely been challenging because we can't play anywhere. We were supposed to play 5 festivals this summer. We ended up playing 0, of course. And, we tried our best during the pandemic to give things to our fans and to potential fans. And of course, it's all positive. And it's been tough because in those platforms of social media, everyone is generally very much lured in by negativity. So if you're trying to lure people in with positivity, it doesn't really work. But having said that, if we happen to run across someone in face-to-face, which isn't often, they usually show a extreme interest in us. So who knows? Maybe it's a challenge. Maybe it's an opportunity to go more grassroots. And when this whole thing's over, maybe we'll do more flyers and billboards. I don't think we'll do a billboard, but you know what I mean. Old school marketing, old school word of mouth, because that does seem to attract more positive outcomes than what social media has become.
Where can we find your music?
If you're looking for Moonlight Community, you can find us anywhere that you look for music. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're on Apple Music, we're on Google Play, we're on Amazon Music, YouTube Music, of course, Facebook. And honestly, I think the best way to find us is our website because it's a one-stop shop, and that is just themoonlightcommunity.com. Pretty cool little website, and it has everything you'd ever need to know about us. The overall message of the Moonlight Community is to be yourself. I think when you take every song we've ever written, and if you put them into like a word generator, it would probably come out as community, which is, I guess we have an appropriate band name then. We have crazy background stories. We have a veteran in our band. We have a cancer survivor in our band. We have a diabetic in our band. We have people who have grieved with close personal deaths in our band. We're kind of a soap opera of sorts. And because of that, our biggest goal is to give whatever we can to whoever we can, whoever needs it. And because of all the crazy things that have happened to us as individuals, we have a really good door to go through that a lot of other people have gone through as well. We've lived lives that other people are living right now. We can relate, and we can be advice givers, or just good listeners, or just a band that makes music that makes people happy. So we're gonna always be this way, and we love meeting people. We love working with people, and maybe one day you'll come see us at a show and we'll hang out, have some fun, dance.
Thank you for listening to Minnesota Artist Profiles, brought to you by KBFT and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
This is a special segment about Native American film and media for KBFT Radio on the Bois Forte Reservation. Sit back and enjoy the listen.
My name is Jonathan Thunder. I was born on the Red Lake Indian Reservation in Minnesota, and actually raised in the Twin Cities in a suburb called Brooklyn Center. And then I went to an inner city school called Center School. That high school counselor there encouraged me to get into art school after graduation because I was always entering into the yearbook art competitions, and I would always do pretty well on those. And after high school, I tried a day job for a little while and found that wasn't for me, and decided that I would go to the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I took up creative writing and majored in painting, and also took some 3D sculpture private lessons there, and lived there for about 3 years, and then returned to Twin Cities and started school at the Art Institute International, Minnesota, which was a trade school in downtown Minneapolis, where I studied filmmaking, visual effects, motion graphics, animation, and video editing, stuff like that. So I really got into films at that time. And during that time, I started to make short films and really just kind of like pay attention to film festivals, short film curated exhibits, and animation. I love painting. I consider myself a painter just as much as I would consider myself a storyteller or animator. Although in my paintings there are small narratives, kind of vignettes that are they're sort of like a captured moment of something happening, either in my mind, in my life, in my world at the time, translated through my lens. So when I was studying painting, I saw a Pixar film called Monsters, Inc. And it was kind of right in sort of like my wheelhouse of storytelling, kind of beautiful, mystical, a little bit on the dark side, but not too much, just enough to kind of bring you into that dangerous world. And I thought to myself, when I get done studying painting, I'd like to get into animation so I can make stories there. And I think for me, it's just a way of continuing the narrative and like furthering the stories that revolve around the characters that I create in my images. As a Native artist, we all have a certain background and upbringing, values, and teachings that we all come from. We all kind of like are given those in the beginning, and artwork by Native artists can reflect those teachings and those stories directly, and just kind of focus on traditional imagery, romantic Native American imagery. But I think a lot of Native artists also want to find a way to express themselves as an individual and their unique experience in the world as a Native. And for me, that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to take my artwork and use it to identify myself as somebody who grew up in Minneapolis, somebody who was kind of living in the melting pot, somebody who wasn't necessarily raised in, immersed in a Native community, but I guess I will always have come from that place. So I think a lot of my characteristics and my storytelling style comes from there.
Thanks for tuning in to our special series about Native American film. This story was brought to you by the Nett Lake Radio Project and the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund of Minnesota. You're listening to The Unexplained, a series on the strange occurrences that have been witnessed or have happened on the Bois Forte Reservation. Brought to you by KBFT, 89.9 FM, and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
My name is Aaron Lightfeather. Well, I'm in the process of hopefully getting enrolled here in Bois Forte, but I'm enrolled in Seine River First Nation.
Aaron Lightfeather and his friend Nicole Anderson were at the Bois Forte Memorial Day powwow. It was late at night when they heard something.
I say it was probably around about like 11:30 at night. We were sitting there just hanging out, debating or not if we was going to go to the casino or not. And so anyways, we were kind of tired out, and we were just kind of had our head back, and I was on the passenger side. Nicole was on the driver's side. And all of a sudden, we heard this like scream of like, oh, something like really loud, and I looked at Nicole, and I was like, what is that? Then all of a sudden, all those dogs started barking. You can just hear them, all those dogs, they just started barking. And the scream went on. It made about just one long scream. And it kind of put the hairs in back of my back. Hey, it kind of stood up, and I was kind of wondering if that was what they call a Sabi or a Gante Anishinaabe. Hey, there was a Bigfoot, and it was, judging by the lungs of the sound, it was huge. And when it made that cry, it just all the dogs started barking, and it was really crazy that night. And then a couple weeks later, we was down in Lake Vermilion, Powell, and it was probably around about 2:45 in the morning. And once again, as we were facing the lake there from the Powell grounds, from Lake Vermilion, it was coming from the west there. From what I hear is that there's a place called Lost Lake or something coming from that area. From what I understood too, that's where they have ceremonies there. And we heard like a loud pitch cry going on for about at least 12 minutes, screaming. It was repeating itself with that loud cry.
And our friend heard it.
And even our friend heard it too. Her name is Phoebe Smith, and she got up and she heard it too, and she was wondering what was that scream, what was that. So we kind of just came to the conclusion that it was a Sabi. It was one of those Gante Anishinaabe, those Bigfoots. And so we've been always pretty much interested in the whole cryptozoology and those aspects to learn that it was a Bigfoot. Maybe it must have been hungry or something like that, or that people need to feed the spirits around here.
That's not the only story Aaron has to tell.
I had a 1997 Saturn Coupe. And we were coming back from the Powell here, and it started thunderstorming. So the Nett Lake Road was kind of like the road it had missed. So I was driving. So we made it to Highway 53, and we took a right there, right by the dam, that bar that's there. So as we was driving, there was 3 oncoming cars with their brights on, from what I remember, and I had to pay attention to the road. I couldn't move my head. My mom says, "Oh, look, there's somebody walking," and I could tell out of my peripheral vision it was in white fur. It must have stood at least about 8 foot tall. It was kind of humpback, and it had its arms dangling like a humanoid, like an ape. And I described it. It was probably about 7 feet tall, maybe 8 feet tall. It looked like a woman, kind of in a way. So anyway, as we got to Cook, fellow other people were talking about it, and what had just occurred, of what they had seen, and they said, yeah, they thought that it was a Bigfoot. So anyway, as we got out of town, we pulled over on the side, and we put the tobacco out. And then when we put the tobacco out, my mom said that Bigfoot was coming back. It was dancing in the bush, listening to those the old songs they used to sing up here, and it was walking back home, and it was powwowing in the woods, and that's from what that spirit of the Sabi that it was talking about. And so I know that there's a family of them living between Lake Vermilion and here around the Nett Lake Woods area. So there is a creature of that. He's here. So.
The Unexplained is brought to you by KBFT 89.9 FM and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Sit back, relax, because you're listening to Native Music Fest, featuring the rockin' sounds of Native musicians from Bois Forte and beyond. Keith Sikola is an award-winning musician who was born in Crookston, Minnesota, and grew up on the Iron Range. He's a member of the Bois Forte Band and has been playing music since the 1990s. He's been inducted into the Native American Music Hall of Fame and has been nominated and won several NAMMYs. The song he is most known for is this one. Keith has performed at Bois Forte several times over the years.
Participating in this Native music series for the last few years. I've seen it grow. I've seen musicians come from all over North America, Native musicians, and perform. And so the stigma and the word is out there that, this is a performing arts series. And so that's why we're here today. We're part of a community outreach at the Northwoods Grizzly Auditorium. Kind of an unusual cafeteria space for a performance, but I think this is how you bring in and you usher in eras, is you go out there and you do it. And so we got just done playing. We played for the students today at the gymnasium. We're very receptive. They were singing Indian cars and fry bread, and they were just having a good time. I've been all over this week. I've been in Oakland, California, in San Francisco, in Minneapolis, in Tower, in Eveleth, and now tomorrow I go to Cherokee, North Carolina, and play for the Cherokee Homecoming. So I've been on the road a while, and I've been playing my style of music, and I bring it with intention and love, and I have some original songs, and I'll be back up here because it's always good to be home.
Sikola doesn't plan to stop touring, making music, or visiting Bois Forte anytime soon. In fact, he's just getting started. For KBFT, I'm Allison Herrera. Native Music Fest is a production of the Nett Lake Radio Project and is supported by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
You're listening to a series about outdoor activities from ricing to survival skills from a Bois Forte perspective.
Troy King.
And what do you do?
Conservation officer for the Bois Forte DNR, or Bois Forte Reservation.
How long have you been working?
I'm on my second year, but I worked 5 years prior in the early 2000s.
Do you have a background in conservation or hunting up on the res here?
I have served as a conservation committee member, also as an officer. We're advisors to the committee, and I have hunted most of my life out here at Bois Forte.
Is hunting a big deal in Minnesota? Do people living on the Bois Forte reservation share the same enthusiasm?
I'd say it's a huge deal throughout the state of Minnesota. Reservation is a little different. More of it's hunting for food, and it's a taught process through families down the years.
What kind of hunting happens mostly on the res?
I'd say deer is the biggest for band members. When the rice is good, duck hunting is pretty popular as a guided hunting. Used to have most seasons that not too many partake in that. With the population being down, we've had to close that season for approximately 4 years.
Is most of the hunting done on the reservation for sport or subsistence?
I would say the deer and animals such as that are for the subsistence. The guided is a little bit more sport for the non-band member hunters that come in and do those seasons.
Is there such a thing as traditional hunting?
Yes, there is, or was, more to the point was. You had to support your family with like deer meat all year. That's an easier, bigger animal to feed your family or your community. We've had seasons for several years just to give us an opportunity to monitor what people are doing if they're not doing it for subsistence. You know, if it's a little more sport for them, you know, it's nice to limit. You know, and it also helps us watch for any waste that may happen. We are in the process of trying to bring back some of the traditional values with the assistance of 1854 and in our communities to have training sessions or just community gatherings to show what used to be done, talk about older stories, how people used to have to store food just to make sure they could have food at later dates in case they couldn't get anything. So some of that's going to be good to get back and have the community get into that.
How different is hunting on the reservation versus off?
Well, the seasons are different. Our numbers are voted on every year. They can adjust according to what we feel the population is. Our rules are a little more lax than the stateside. The areas are different and it's smaller, so they have to utilize what they can to the areas that we hunt, and that's why some do go to 1854 and hunt that ceded territory, just because there is a larger area to cover.
Do you know of any of the numbers? Is it greater hunting on the reservation than off the reservation per band members?
I'd say a majority of them do hunt the reservation more than they do 1854. Some like to, the ones that do a lot of hunting in 1854 is because their significant other, wife, husband, however, have an opportunity to hunt with them out in the state, whereas they wouldn't be able to on the reservation.
Boys Fort Outdoor is produced by KBFT with support from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
You're listening to the series about family history, sharing the legacy of Boys Fort band members past and present. This segment features Heart Warrior Chosa, talking about her family on Basswood Lake.
Ju Odeo get you the indigenous cause. Yeah, okay.
What do they call you in English?
Heart Warrior.
You want to tell us where you're from?
Boundary Waters Canoe Area, Basswood Lake.
Where do you live now?
Yeah, I'm living in Nett Lake right now. The steaming metropolis of Nett Lake. Okay, well, you know that my dad was from Basswood Lake in now it's called the Boundary Waters. It didn't become the Boundary Waters till I was 11. Anyway, so his family had villages out there, and there were 3 brothers that came over from Baraga, Keweenaw Bay. They were Bear Clan, and they married the 3 sisters there that were Eagle Clan, descendants of Sacagawea. 3 sisters married to 3 brothers. And they all had different areas of Basswood that they were on, And our family, my grandma and grandpa, were on the 4 Mile Portage. That's where they raised their family and stuff. And then my grandpa built 3 cabins for his grandchildren further down the lake, which is where I was always, since I was a little baby, that's where I was brought to in the summertime. Yeah, so my grandma Clara, her father was a Dufault, and he came by way of Fond du Lac from Madeline Island, his ancestors. and her mother Sacagawea. Well, when the Ojibwe traveled west, some clans went south of Lake Superior and some clans went north of Lake Superior. And so she was from the clans that went north of Lake Superior. But my mother's people, that's a whole different story. They're from Turtle Mountains in North Dakota. Well, when the bands were traveling west of the Anishinaabe, a chief named Little Shell continued traveling west past Red Lake into the Dakotas with his little band of Anishinaabe. His name was Little Shell. Yeah, well, my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side, they were all Mitchiffs, all the way down the line, pure blood. My mother didn't speak English till she started boarding school when she was 12. But the stories of both grandmothers is they both hung on to their traditions. So both grandmas died young. I never got to meet them physically, but I kind of got to meet them in the spirit world.
The Family History Series is brought to you by the Nett Lake Radio Project and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Welcome to Boys Fort 90. Boys Fort history in 90 seconds. A treaty is any legally binding agreement between nations. There were many treaties signed between the Anishinaabe and the U.S. government. On September 30th, 1854, a treaty was signed with several Ojibwe bands and the United States in LaPointe, Wisconsin, ceding their land in exchange for annual payments, goods and services, permanent reservations, and hunting, fishing, and gathering rights within the boundaries of the territory. The Ojibwe thought it was in their best interest to sign such treaties after the Sandy Lake tragedy and the Indian removal efforts of the 1850s. Over 5.5 million acres were ceded to 3 Ojibwe bands within the Minnesota Arrowhead region that included Boys Fort, Grand Portage, and the Fond du Lac Band of Ojibwe. The Lake Vermilion sector is the only part of Boys Fort that lies within this territory. The 1854 treaty still remains in effect today, and many tribal members exercise their hunting and fishing rights within these boundaries. Boys Fort 90 is produced by KBFT Radio and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
This is Native Fashion, a KBFT series about the tradition of regalia making and the people who do it.
I'm Kara Drift.
You're working on some regalia. Can you tell us a little bit about that and describe what you're making?
I'm making a fancy shawl with the colors will be purple and gray. Hopefully it will be done soon.
Is this your first outfit that you're making?
Full outfit, yes. I have made just one shawl before for a breast cancer foundation.
How long ago was that?
About 2 years ago.
How many years have you been dancing?
About 10 to 12 years.
What do you like best about dancing?
Just being able to be out there and showing my support, to know that at least a few more people are dancing and keeping the tradition alive.
Does any of your regalia mean something?
I'm kind of making this. My grandpa, Lester Drift Sr., he passed away 2 years ago. I'm kind of making this in memory of him, I guess. He always wanted to make sure that we kept the tradition alive, to make sure that we were always dancing.
Native Fashion is produced by the Nett Lake Radio Project and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Bonjour. Beba Wewetung Indishinakas. Shaganashamoin Donald L. Chosa. Zagakwantago in Iniwag Ishkornigan in Dunjaba. Onao Oshki Debabjamoinug. Minwa Adzukanug. Gi Debajamoag. Ojibwe Debajamo in Iniwag. Miigwech Bizendao Gi Debajamoad. Hello, my name is Wolves Howling All Around You, or Donald Chosa. I'm from the Boys Fort Reservation. These are some contemporary and traditional Anishinaabe stories told by Ojibwe storytellers.
One of the ones is I remember hearing my grandma telling me stories about the hairy men that live out at that island, Spirit Island. Somebody went out and they were setting nets. Somebody seen somebody out there, two people out there in a canoe, taking the stuff from the people's nets that they set. So they got in a canoe to try and chase them down. They went in, they chased them out to Spirit Island. And on the north side of the Spirit Island, if you've ever been out there, the rock is split. There's like a big gorge like that there. Basically, when you get out there, you'll see it. She said that when they chased them things, the hairy men, went in. That rock, like it opened up. A doorway opened up, and they went in there. She said then the ones that were chasing them tried to do the same thing. And they hit the rocks. And they said the ones that were chasing them could hear them inside the rocks laughing and talking in the Indian language, saying that they thought they could do that too, basically. They thought they could do that. Years ago, probably like maybe 2000, 2001, when I was into running, really into jogging and running, I was coming back around a lake, running around a lakeshore here. Got over by Girls Landing. Got getting closer more towards Albert's Landing. And I could see, I thought it was sweat getting in my eyes. And I seen one of those things, those hairy men. And he was crouched down like this, and he was looking out towards the lake. And when I remember seeing his leg. It must have been at least probably that long, meaning that it was tall. I remember wiping the sweat from my eyes. I thought I was seeing things. I remember wiping the sweat away, and I looked, and I got closer. And when I started getting closer, when I was running, he turned and looked at me. And his face was hairy, and he had like a little, how a dog's nose looks? It's black and it's kind of like wet like. That's how that thing's nose looked. And when I got closer, it disappeared. I went seeing Gian right away, and I told him what I saw. And he told me, he said, well, go put a dish there. What are you seeing? I put some tobacco down and put a dish there. So that's what I did. And since then, I have not seen that spirit, that being, whatever that is. Another one, too, is when my grandmother, she said she was a young girl. She had an older sister, and if I can remember correctly, her older sister's name was Sadie. They used to have a boarding school over on Vermilion. They took her sister Sadie over there and placed her in a boarding school. Somehow, word got back to my grandmother, her dad, that they're coming to get my grandma Jessie. She was a little young girl, like maybe younger than these little girls here. They're coming back to get her. My grandmother said her dad took her out to Big Island and hid her out there for 4 nights and 4 days. And he'd go out and check on her, though. He'd always go out there and check on her. And she said that she remembers she was really scared. Being so small like that, being so young, being out there, left out there on a big island. Her sister wasn't as fortunate as she was, because she had to go through the pain and suffering of going through the boarding school. And where I'm going with that is that, we as Indian people, look where we're at. Our language, we're my Auntie Karen, I'm attending that class, trying to bring the language back, trying to hang on to the language. Back then, before the Europeans came here, there was only one type of Indian, traditional. We didn't have last names like Drift. We didn't have first names like Shane. We didn't have blood quantums. We didn't have enrollments. We didn't have allotments. We didn't have to disenroll you, disenrollment. We didn't have that type of stuff here. That was forced upon us. That was given to us, forced upon us by the dominant society. What we had back then, as I understand it, listening to my grandmother, is that we had a shaming tradition. And that was where if a person did something bad enough, the elders or the clan or the band could shame that person. And if that didn't work, then they could banish them. And banish them for like maybe 4 seasons, which would be 1 year or more. But they wouldn't banish them indefinitely. It's good that, I feel good that we're doing it. Like we're trying to preserve all these stories, these teachings. Because someday, our kids are going to say, well, why don't you tell me this story? Why don't you tell me that story? How did we come to live here in Nett Lake, Boys Fort? I remember Ken told me that story about the war over by Geen Hill. My grandmother used to tell me the stories about the Sioux battles. I remember hearing that as a young boy. And the story about the flood. Billy touched on that. I remember my grandmother telling me about the story about that. It was they were on a turtle after the flood happened. And they were trying to get one of the animals to go down and go get some dirt to bring it back up so they could make land again. But the animals tried. Even they said the duck tried. A duck tried, and he couldn't get all the way down to the bottom. Came back up, empty-handed, basically. The muskrat, I do believe, was the one that went down. They said the animals waited for a long time. That muskrat was gone. He dove, and then finally, when he came back up, he was dead. But they opened up his little hand, and he had dirt in his little hand. And that's how the land was basically, as I remember, if I can remember that correctly, that's how the land came back. That's how we got the land back. And that's my understanding of the flood story. Another one, too, is regarding the drift drum. This teaching comes from Rosemary Behrens, is that we must pass on the stories behind the drum, how it came to be here. How I got the drift drum, how I became the keeper of it, was that back in the late 80s, we had some unfortunate violence happen here. And the original, the keeper of it was one of my cousins. And she ended up going away, and it was determined that my grandmother, Margaret Jessie Drift, would be the keeper of that drum. But before that actually happened, before it was actually passed over to her, I remember that the house, I think it's where Kurt Goodsky lives now, that house, there was eagle feathers, there's an eagle bustle in there, a fan, the drift drum, and somebody tried to burn that house down. I remember that morning, it was like, 5 o'clock that morning. I remember sitting there, I was watching TV. I remember seeing a little girl come running by, and I looked up, and it was my cousin Farah. And I went over there, and I opened up the door, and I could tell she was just wild-eyed, and she said, "Dad's house is on fire." So I got on my shoes and stuff. I went running over there. How the house sits like this. Front door is right here. The back door back here. In the back bedroom is where the fire was started. I remember Jerome and Clara were there. My Auntie Karen and my Uncle Lester were there. And then I come running in, and I looked up, and I remember seeing the flames in that bedroom. I don't know what came over me, how I knew what to do, but I went running back around the corner of the house, turned on the water spigot, turned it on, and I grabbed the garden hose. Went running back over. I remember throwing that window, or tearing off that screen, throwing that window open, climbing up on top of a tire, and I started squirting water in there. And to me, I think it was a spirit or spirits, or maybe the spirit of that drum, that directed me to do that. Because I was able to save the drum, and I think it was the bustle, I think that was saved, but I think that the eagle fan wasn't. It was scorched, and also saved the house. So then they determined that the drum should go to my grandma, Margaret Drift. She became the keeper of the drum, the drift drum. Then after she passed away in 1999, May of 1999, I didn't want to be the keeper of that drum. I tried to give it. I wanted either my Uncle Lester or my Auntie Myra to be the keeper of it because I didn't want to keep it. It's like I knew that was a big responsibility. And they both said, no, it should stay with you. So that's how I became the keeper of it. And the songs to that, to the drift drum is Ogichita, Awiya, Anishka, Inguja, Bushka, Agama King Bimoseya. What that means is how it was explained to me is that I'm going to be walking around overseas, but not for nothing. That song was part of a special ceremony for people going into the service and going off to war. And everybody that went through that ceremony and heard that song, as I understand it, came back alive. So I just wanted to share that and make sure that's recorded and passed on. I do tell my kids this story, but I just want other people to know that just because it's the drift drum and I'm the keeper of it doesn't mean that it's mine. It belongs to this community. You watch.
What is your name and where are you from?
My name is Shane and I'm from Nett Lake.
What originally got you into storytelling?
Well, I was raised by my grandmother, and I used to remember her telling me stories, and sometimes she'd only tell me certain stories during the wintertime when the ground was frozen. And some of them stories, they just stuck with me, and they have different meanings to different people. It could mean one thing for me, and it could have a different meaning for you or anybody else. It doesn't have just one meaning.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you view as like the significance of storytelling in Anishinaabe culture?
To me, storytelling, what it does for me, it's family time. It's also keeping up with the tradition of storytelling and carrying on that tradition. And also, like I said, they have various teachings and meanings within that story. And then, when it's passed down, it's passed down from one generation to the next. And then it kind of opens up like different teachings and different meanings for other generations behind us. And to me, it's just part of who we are as Indian people. It needs to be carried on, and it should be carried on. And I've been telling my kids various stories from Nett Lake to the animals to even some from our own family, like the Strongs are descendants from the John Bear Grease, stuff like that.
Okay, like the stories that you tell, the stories that you share, where do they come from?
Mostly my stories came from my grandmother, and them stories came from her mother, and then her grandmother. So she carried on that tradition, so they just kept getting handed down. One story I can remember offhand that pops into my mind right now is that a story of a young woman that was kidnapped by, I do believe it was Eskimos, that came down so far down this way that they took her back, or the woman from here, our reservation, a long time ago, and took her way back up where they came from. And she escaped, but she made her way back to the people here at Boyce Fort. And it took her I think it took her almost 2 years. I think it took her a while to get back here, but she found her way back here. And it turns out that same story that my grandmother told me, that's one of Donald Chosa's family members from a long time ago. So he had that same story.
Oh, okay. And would you say could anybody be a storyteller? Just anybody?
To me, if you're given a story, that to me, once you're given a story by an elder or anybody, a storyteller, you go give them tobacco and say thank you, for giving me that story and the teachings that come along with that story. Because they're giving you that story for a reason. And the teachings that come out of that story are for you. Then in turn, my interpretation of that is that once you are told a story, then you become a keeper of that story. So then it's your responsibility to turn around and pass it on to somebody else. So once you're given a story, a person can become a storyteller. and they can, if they're directed to only tell it at a certain time, certain season, to be respectful of that and follow that tradition. Like if they can only tell a story during the wintertime, then that's when they would only tell that story.
Okay, and is there anything else that you'd like to add today about the importance of storytelling?
Storytelling, we get them. People are going to start getting them through dreams, stories that need to be passed on and revived. They're going to start giving it through dreams and visions or whatever. People are going to start telling them and what they mean. If you don't know what they mean, the one that's giving the story, but through a dream or a vision, put your tobacco and ask. Look at when, search for the reasons why you were giving that story, when you can tell that story. Put your tobacco out, make your offerings. So there's old traditional stories, and now there's even some now time stories. As an example, one of the now time stories that I have came from my gift of writing, and it's a story called Sad Evil. And basically his story is about a young brave who had the ability to shapeshift, and that is part of our history as Indian people here on Bois Forte, is that a lot of these people don't know that we do have that ability. We did have that ability at one time as a people to shapeshift. The story there's a story about a young man that was captured by Sioux warriors, I do believe it was, and they had him staked to the ground, and when they captured him, and he turned himself into a dog, and he was trying to get away, and the Sioux people at that time realized what was going on, so they started to chase that dog, but the individual ended up getting away. And I'm going back to my other point about Sad Evil, is that's a now time story that I'll be sharing later on, and I'm just grateful for that, my gift of writing, and then being able to see the stories and the meanings and the significance behind them, and the teachings that they brought out in me. The Sad Evil story, for me, we need to, as Indian people, we need to govern our passions, our desires, our own negativities that we have, and even like a simple story of maybe it's 1 page long, has significance. As an example, I have it hanging up by my office or by my desk. It's a story of a native man and a non-native guy gathering crabs on a beach, and Indian guys' crabs keep getting out no, it's the white guy's crabs keep getting out and crawling out out of the bucket, and the white guy notices the Indian crabs stay in the bucket. So the white guy asks the Indian, he says, "Hey," he says, "how come your crabs stay in the bucket while mine get out and crawl out, when I'm gathering other crabs?" And the Indian guy says, "Well, them are Indian crabs." And the Indian kind of laughs, and then goes about his business gathering other crabs. And the white guy kind of gets curious, so he goes over and looks at the Indian in the Indian's bucket, kind of half expecting to see the crabs wearing war paint and feathers. But, he looks at the crabs are exactly the same as his. And he says, "Excuse me," he says, "but your crabs look exactly the same as my crabs. How can your crabs be Indian crabs?" And the Indian guy says, "Well, when one of the crabs try to climb up out of the bucket, all the other crabs reach up and pull the other crab back down." When I heard that story, and that was given to me by an elder, when I heard that, I kind of laughed, and that elder just sat there looking at me. And then I sat there and I kept thinking, I said, "That's not humorous at all. That's sad." Because look at one point as Indian people, we weren't like that. How people reach up and pull other people down is by their own negativity, selfishness, hatred, jealousy, anger, grudges. Grudges that there's family grudges that against my family, or my family may have against other people, other families. And it's like that was before my time. It's like, and I don't understand that. I really don't. But getting back to that story, I started looking at that more, thinking about it more. And it's like, am I going to be the type of person that's going to reach up and try to pull somebody down? Or am I going to be the type of person just sit by and watch and do nothing? Or am I going to be the type of person that's going to try to reach down and help somebody up? And that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to reach down and help people up. And I'm thankful for that story that Elder gave me about the crabs. And that's a good story. I've shared that with various people, and they liked it, and they continued to carry it on and tell other people about it.
And so do you think that maybe through stories we can work out some of our differences, some of our problems? Is that possible, do you think, through stories?
Yes, yes. With our stories, the teachings behind it, the meanings behind it, our interpretations, that, hey, this is what it means. Oh, yeah, to be respectful of each other and say, yeah, it could dissolve some of our differences. Maybe heal some old wounds, that there's family grudges that are being carried on that have, it's like, okay, if it happened 40 years ago, 50 years ago, why are you still carrying it on? It's like, doesn't make sense. At one time, we all didn't have the last names that we do have now. We didn't have, the last name of Drift or whatever. We didn't have, blood quantums and stuff. At one time, we were just Indian people living in harmony or trying to live in harmony. And the stories from the boarding school, those need to be passed on too, and those stories need to be told. What happened at the boarding schools. The philosophy behind the boarding school was to kill the man, or to kill the Indian and save the man. To kill the Indian and save the man, and what that meant was to kill the traditional way out of the Indian. And to a certain point, they have succeeded with that philosophy, with that mindset. Is that nowadays we have 4 types of Indians: traditional, church, and church can be symbolic of other ways, and the other one is church and traditional, or one native that doesn't follow any way. That's just the truth. It's right there in front of us. We see it every day. We have some Indians that follow the traditional way. We have some Indians that follow the church way. We have some Indians that follow both ways, and we have some Indians that don't follow any way. And we never had blood quantums. We never had allotments. We never had ownership of parcels of land. We never had that. That was forced upon us. And one thing I noticed that reading on the internet, you hear about people being disenrolled from this reservation or that reservation. And traditionally speaking, we never had enrollments. That came from the colonizers back then. We never had enrollments, disenrollments. Traditionally speaking, we had the shaming tradition, where that was to correct a person's behavior, and if that didn't work, then they would go to banishment. They wouldn't banish them forever. They'd banish them for maybe like 4 seasons, maybe 8 seasons. That'd be 2 years. And that was to try and correct the individual's behavior. So I just share that.
That's awesome. Well, I really want to thank you for doing this interview for us, and it's been really a good interview and enlightening and kind of eye-opening about certain things. And like we have this storytelling event coming up this Saturday at the Heritage Center over there in Tower, Lake Vermilion. Any last words on how you see like such an event, how that's beneficial to the people, like the storytelling event that is about to take place this Saturday?
Yes, that's a great thing that KBFT and the grant that they have to do this, because it's preserved. It's kind of bringing the people back to the traditional way. How they say we're losing the language. I look at it from the other way. We're not losing the language is losing us. There's a difference there. And but now we're having classes, that was offered, and I'm grateful to the Tribal Council for allowing that to happen. That we do have Karen Drift and Donald Chosa teaching the class down there. I've been going to that class and trying to learn what I can, when I can, when I'm not so busy. And getting back to the event, the KBFT storytelling event, that's good that what the radio station is doing, what we as KBFT are doing regarding the language, the culture, the storytellings, the traditions, the teachings, that needs to be done. And we at KBFT, we're doing that. And it's just like, wow. That's all I can say is, it's just wow. It's awesome.
Yes, it is awesome. And I just want to thank you, Shane, for this interview, and I really appreciate your time and your wisdom and your sharing. I'll close with that.
Yep.
Miigwech.
Yep, miigwech.
The Nett Lake Storytelling Project is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Miigwech for listening to our story.
You are listening to KBFT, Minnesota Artist Profiles, a series featuring artists and musicians of Minnesota. Brought to you by KBFT 89.9 FM and the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Mary Villard is a self-taught visual artist from Duluth, Minnesota, who works in a variety of artistic mediums, including painting, illustrations, portraits, and murals. She's also a community organizer, curator, and an arts educator.
Bonjour, my name is Mary Villiard. I'm a visual artist based in Duluth, Minnesota. Originally from the Fond du Lac Reservation. I'm a direct descendant on my dad's side from there. And then my mom is enrolled in a Delaware Lenape tribe in Canada. So I've got direct descendant status there as well, but I don't know as much about that history or that side of my family. Yeah, and I do, like I said, visual artwork. I've kind of traversed a lot of different mediums since I started working professionally as an artist. My background, I think, at its core is originally painting, so doing acrylic painting and a little bit of oil painting. I'm really drawn to surreal, sort of dreamlike imagery, and also a little bit, I guess, into the woodland style of work. I think that's definitely been an influence, even if it's not as obvious in my work. And then I also do portraits. And I guess in more recent time, I've been trying to merge those two styles together in a way that's cohesive and explores a lot of just, I use my personal painting practice just to explore inner turmoil and inner joy and just the different thoughts that I have, which is a very vague way of putting my artwork, but yeah. And then I also do, I guess more recently, I've gotten into doing murals and public art, community engaged artwork where lots of different people in the public are helping me create a piece. And then most recently, I got into animation with Jonathan Thunder as kind of a mentor on that end of things. So I'm excited to kind of move from my sort of, what they would call traditional art, painting and fine art and things like that, moving from still images to moving images and keeping my style and also seeing how it changes in that way. I think like a common thread in my artwork, because I've really worked across all different mediums. I think the thing that ties all of the work I've done together is my use of color. I really love oranges and purples. I really love vibrancy and stuff that I think is in contrast to some of the more neutral shades and tones in our cities specifically, but also a little bit in the landscape.
How long have you been creating your art?
I think I had my start as an artist around the time I moved to Duluth, kind of in my late teens. I had my first art show at the American Indian Center, the American Indian Community Housing Organization, back when they had first opened their doors in the Gamaji building. And I always tell the story of we were all very new to the world of galleries and exhibitions. ACO, as their acronym is, they essentially connected with me as this young artist who'd never done a show, and I did a duo show, I guess, a show with Rocky Makes Room for Them, who's a Lakota artist who was working at ACO at the time. And, he asked me if I had enough art for a show, and I was like, totally, yeah. And I was super excited to do a show in the big city of Duluth, Minnesota, having grown up in little old Cloquet. And so I dropped off all of my artwork, 50 plus just random loose sketches and paintings that I've been working on. And I dropped them off at ACO a couple days before the actual show opening. And in my head, I figured, galleries have money. They just frame things and make things look nice for you and do the entire show for you, and you just show up. And so that's not how it works, long story short. But ACO was kind enough to frame all of those pieces of work. And from there, that was my first body of ready to hang artwork that I was able to bring to a bunch of other exhibitions. And that's kind of how I got my start. And that was back in 2012, or maybe 2013, somewhere around there. And I ended up going back and working for ACO after graduating college. And around that time, I'd made a goal that I was going to do something artistic basically every month for the rest of my life. And I kept on it. I got into probably over 150 shows after that, kind of a mix of both group and solo shows. I've done curation. and also, the deviations into public art and workshops and stuff like that. So it's been almost 10 years of being a professional, quote-unquote, artist.
Have you received any awards?
I had a big year for awards. I think in 2019 I got a couple different community awards just for, I think, the combination of my art branching into, I guess, social justice work. I got a NAACP Take a Stand for the Revolution Award and the 20 Under 40 for the Duluth News Tribune and just a bunch of other stuff. So it was really cool being recognized that year. And that was the year I was really just starting to get into public art. With my public art, I like to do land acknowledgement stuff. I like to look at what's missing in the community and bringing it to light. And obviously in a lot of places there's not really authentic artwork that incorporates Indigenous perspectives or stories, even though that's, the larger history of all the places that we live in right now, including Duluth. And so my work as kind of an activist and artist has been to kind of open up spaces for other Native artists to just make work and be visible and hopefully create work that's going to be leave a positive impression for future generations. I really like collaborating in my work, so some of the artists I've worked with kind of frequently or as of late for murals are Michelle Defoe, who's a Red Cliff artist, and she's helping me with the Chief Buffalo project that we're trying to get finished this summer in Duluth. And then also Carla Hamilton. She's a painter, kind of an abstract painter who's been assisting me in a lot of murals.
What is the greatest thing about being an artist?
That work I get to do with the youth, I think. There was a moment I got to do a large-scale projected animation for Illuminate the Lock down in the Twin Cities, and that was with help from All My Relations and Northern Lights and a lot of other sponsors. And in that piece, I was kind of tasked with creating a moving animation that would be projected on this 400-foot surface, of a wall right by the river. And that was a really cool collaborative opportunity. I recorded an elder, Millie Richard, and asked her to address some of the issues around murdered and missing Indigenous women and to just speak to the issue. And also I reached out to Liz Jacala and gave her kind of the same prompt, thinking about these women and also this issue and also just the resilience